Chapter 11-18. Inside the Dark Knight formation, Nye Tian locked onto all the Azura assassins with his divine sense. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He had to admit that Yun Xie's Dark Knight ward was a great help to Nye Tian. The Dark Knight formation could not block Nye Tian's 5 senses, but it could block the other assassins' senses. At this moment, the ones waiting to be slaughtered were not Nye Tian, but the Azura assassins. At this thought, Nye Tian's murderous intent soared and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. What a troublesome fellow! Are you still going to resist? Yun Xie smiled coldly when he sensed Nye Tian's murderous intent. He had not expected that Nye Tian would not give up at a time like this. What a troublesome fellow! You should be asking yourself if your subordinates still want to resist. Nye Tianling smiled as his icy voice echoed inside the formation. Yun Xie's eyes narrowed when he heard Nye Tian's voice. He had not transmitted his words to Nye Tian. How did the latter hear him? Die, all of you! Before Yun Xie could react, the wings on Nye Tian's back flapped and he stepped on his green dragon. With the support of the meteor wings, the green dragon's speed increased. Kill them for me! Nye Tianling bellowed. The green dragon's claws flashed with a cold light as it swung down at the Azura assassins. Several beams of cold light whistled through the air. The sound of flesh being sliced was heard as the green dragon tore the Azura assassins into mincemeat. Since they had lost their 5 senses in the Dark Knight ward, they hadn't sensed Nye Tian's attack at all. They had only sensed the frigid killing intent the moment the frosty light descended. By then, it was already too late for them to resist. After killing several Azura assassins in an instant, the remaining assassins were still dumbstruck. They had no idea what was going on. Nye Tian moved like lightning. In a few flashes, he had killed another 7 or 8 Azura assassins. Damn it! It was only at this moment that Yun Xie suddenly reacted. After letting out a furious roar, he was reluctant to close the Dark Knight barrier. Instead, his body moved and his spear shot towards Nye Tian. Nye Tian stood atop the green dragon, his speed reaching the pinnacle. As soon as he saw Yun Xie's spear descend, the green dragon's body flickered as it dashed towards the terrifying black spear. At the same time, Nye Tian took a step forward and the wings on his back shook. Like a shooting star, he was still in the air, but all the blood and qi in his body shot out. Without any hesitation, he used the final move of the 3 heaven-annihilating swords, Blood Devours the Heavens. As Nye Tian's blood qi became more and more intense, his sword intent also surged to the extreme. With a thrust of his sword, the blood-colored sword shadow was thousands of meters long. Boom! The strongest sword strike rumbled towards those last 3 Azura assassins. These 3 people all had 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength, but at this moment they were standing on the spot motionlessly, not detecting anything at all. Bang! 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 After 3 muffled sounds, the 3 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists actually did not even have the chance to let out their final screams as they were directly sent flying backward, crashing onto the edge of the Dark Knight enchantment, turning into a sea of blood light, dying tragically on the spot. Kaboom! And on the other side, a furious spear struck the green dragon, directly piercing through the green dragon's body. Fresh blood spurted out wildly, falling down like blood rain. The dark space was immediately filled with an extremely bloody smell. Die for me! The current Yun Xie was already enraged to the extreme. The annihilation evil cloud erupted with terrifying power. The green dragon's body finally could not withstand it and actually directly exploded in the air. Flesh and blood rained down. The scene was so tragic that one could not bear to look at it. But when Nye Tian saw this scene, he smiled faintly. Raising his arm, a ball of green liquid appeared in his palm and surged into the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring. Even if Yun Xie destroyed the Jade Green Divine Dragon's body, he was unable to destroy the Green Dragon's liquid. Nie Tian retrieved the green dragon's liquid and let it return to the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring to continue absorbing the Spirit Dragon seal's power. Before long, it would become a good dragon again. Nie Tian used the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring's power this time. Although he did not kill Yun Xie, he killed off the other Azura assassins. It was also considered pretty good. After destroying the green dragon with a single spear strike, Yun Xie scanned the area with his divine sense. However, he discovered that everyone around him was already dead. Only Nie Tian was still standing there with a cold, sinister smile on his face, as if he was mocking Yun Xie. Ah! Suddenly, Yun Xie roared in rage, unable to accept the outcome before his eyes. He originally activated the Dark Night enchantment in order to kill Nie Tian more easily. But he did not expect that it helped Nie Tian instead, allowing him to instantly exterminate all of the Azura assassins. Yun Xie could not accept such an outcome. These assassins were the evil Cloud Hall's most outstanding assassins. In order to kill Nie Tian, they had practically turned out in full force. Yet, this was the outcome that drove Yun Xie crazy. Why? Why aren't you affected by the Dark Night enchantment? This is impossible, impossible. Yun Xie was on the brink of insanity. His body trembled and his face contorted in anger. He roared madly like an enraged beast. He had used the Dark Night enchantment countless times, and even those stronger than him could not break it. How could Nie Tian not be affected by it? He could not understand this, and even more so, he could not accept it. An enchantment formed by the fusion of one's bloodline and original spirit is indeed terrifying. Unfortunately, this kind of enchantment that blocks all 5 senses is useless against me. Nie Tianling replied coldly. The calmness in his eyes was terrifying. He had to thank Yun Xie for activating the Dark Night enchantment, which allowed him to complete the Dark Night massacre in an instant. Killing so many Shura assassins, all of whom were stronger than him, made Nie Tian feel extremely satisfied. Bastard, I'm going to kill you! By now, Yun Xie had completely lost all sense of reason. With a roar, he removed the Dark Night enchantment and the Annihilation Nefarious Cloud charged towards Nie Tian. You want to kill me just like that? It won't be that easy. Nie Tian smiled faintly. In his mind, there was a holographic projection of everything within 10,000 meters of him. Yun Xie's every move was within his expectations. He even realized that the holographic projection could predict what would happen in the next moment. It seemed to have the ability to predict what would happen in the next moment, allowing Nie Tian to see what would happen in the next moment. If the holographic divine sigil could predict what would happen in the next moment based on what it had captured, then it would be too overpowered. This would allow Nie Tian to react in advance before the enemy even made a move. At that moment, Nie Tian could vaguely feel that the holographic projection sometimes moved faster than the scene in front of him. However, he was not sure if the holographic divine sigil had the ability to predict what would happen. Just like now, before Yun Xie even made his move, he could already see the shadow of the spear whistling towards him through the holographic projection, allowing him to react quickly. Yun Xie was already enraged. He spared no effort in his spear strike. A huge shadow of the spear surged forward, its aura as vast as the mountains and the seas. Chapter 11:19. How is this possible? Yun Xie's gaze trembled violently when his move was avoided by Nie Tian, his face revealing horror. Nie Tian's speed was actually so fast, directly avoiding his attack. This was too inconceivable. 6th level Heavenly Emperor strength, still a little lacking if you want to kill me. Nie Tian raised his brows and smiled, extremely provocative. He had the meteor wings. Although he could not defeat Yun Xie, if he wanted to escape, the other party absolutely could not hold him back either. Damn it! Yun Xie cursed angrily once more. Dark Night Chi gushed out from his entire body and actually condensed into a pair of black wings on his back. When fully spread out, It was as large as 100 meters, making his entire person look like some evil black moth. "Nia Tian, I'll see how fast you can be." Yun Xie gnashed his teeth hatefully. The dark night wings suddenly shook, and his figure directly charged over towards Nia Tian. He never thought that the mission this time would actually have such an ending. Evil Cloud Hall was one of the Azura Gate's 4 halls, and he was also the Evil Cloud Hall's hall master. Evil Cloud Hall turned out in full force in order to exterminate a second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. In the end, they actually suffered heavy casualties, leaving only him alone alive. With such an outcome, even if he killed Nia Tian at this time, after returning to Azura Gate, he would definitely receive heavy punishment from the sect master. Thinking up to this point, Yun Xie's hatred towards Nia Tian intensified. The fury in his eyes wished to skin the other party alive. In contrast, Nia Tian had a calm look. He calculated that Long Outyin and Shui Yong should be about the same. He was unable to kill Yun Xie, but Long Outyin was completely capable. Evil Cloud Ghost Slaughter. Yun Xie roared deeply, his figure charging down wildly. Annihilating Evil Cloud rumbled down. Horrifying spear shadows were akin to collapsing mountains, pouncing over towards Nia Tian ferociously. "I'm not playing with you anymore." Nia Tian laughed mockingly. The meteor wings suddenly shook, his figure flying up like a meteor, leaving behind a dazzling starlight trace in the night sky. Boom! The huge shadow of the spear flew past, but it was still a little short. It did not hit Nia Tian, but the remaining power of the spear affected the latter. Nia Tian's figure froze. A small wound appeared on his body, but it healed instantly. At this moment, Jiang Yi's essence power was nearly depleted, and he did not have much power of the stars left. The wings of meteor would not last much longer. It was not wise for him to continue fighting with Yun Xie. Nia Tian didn't hesitate any longer. His figure flashed out and flashed towards the direction of the small courtyard. Trying to escape? Yun Xie's cold eyes trembled as he immediately gave chase. Nia Tian. Just as Nia Tian arrived outside the small courtyard, Emo Rushi's figure appeared. She had already seen the previous fight, but she couldn't go over, because even if she went over, she wouldn't be able to help Nia Tian, and would instead become a burden. Moreover, she had Cher by her side. She needed someone to protect her. "Ru Shi, where's Shui Yong?" Nia Tian stopped moving and asked in a deep voice. It was impossible for Emo Rushi to block Yun Xie. Perhaps Shui Yong, who had broken through to the 5th level of the Heavenly Emperor realm, could block Yun Xie for a while. "He's still in the room," Emo Rushi said anxiously. Seeing Nia Tian's pale complexion, a worried look involuntarily appeared on her face. She asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Nia Tian nodded his head solemnly. He muttered, "Shui Yong, that brat. Even eating a spirit pill is so strenuous." Shui Yong had not come out yet. Nia Tian had no choice but to continue fighting with Yun Xie. At this time, Yun Xie had already charged over. His entire body emanated the aura of the dark night. His entire person seemed to be standing in a mass of dark clouds, and his surging aura nearly crushed the entire small courtyard. "Nia Tian, die for me." Yun Xie had just arrived and attacked without any nonsense. The annihilation evil cloud suddenly expanded, and it actually condensed into the giant spirit true body. 1,000-meter-long black spear floated behind him, and the surging aura seemed to be able to tear heaven and earth apart. What a frightening power! Emo Rushi's petite face stiffened when she saw this scene. Her eyes trembled uncontrollably. "Rushi, step back and protect Shui-er." Nia Tian saw that Yun Xie had used the giant spirit true body. He knew that Yun Xie was truly enraged and would not rest until one of them was dead. Nia Tian instructed Emo Rushi as the aura around his body surged. "Your essence force is exhausted, and your blood chi is almost exhausted as well. Do you still want to fight me?" Yun Xie shouted, his eyes filled with contempt. Of course, He could tell that Nye Tian was already an arrow at the end of its flight. No matter how strange Nye Tian's strength was, it was impossible for him to fight Yun Xie. Humph! Nye Tianling laughed. He did not say a word. His entire body released a scarlet halo that spread out in circles. It was like a blood-red screen, following which a huge figure appeared behind him. It was the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast. At this time, Nye Tian could only use the giant spirit true body to fight Yun Xie. When the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast appeared, heaven and earth trembled. The void was pulled tight by a huge force, and the power of heaven and earth changed. What a frightening essence spirit! Yun Xie's eyes trembled. The annihilation evil cloud behind him could not help but tremble as if it felt a strong threat. Chaos descends, all living beings submit. The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was a supreme being essence spirit. Even if Nye Tian was not strong enough, the Emperor of Chaos Beast's prestige could not be offended. My essence spirit is already a rank 7 essence spirit, but it actually feels threatened by his essence spirit. What rank is his essence spirit? Could it be a rank 9 supreme being? Yun Xie's heart trembled as his eyes flickered. He guessed that Nye Tian's essence spirit was a rank 9 supreme being. However, he could not imagine that the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was actually a rank 10 supreme being essence spirit. Make your move. Using the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast, Nye Tian's essence force was almost exhausted. His 9 dragon veins were also exhausted. Even his body seemed a little thin. Arrogant! Yun Xie bellowed. Even if Nye Tian's essence spirit was heaven-defying, he was not strong enough. Moreover, his essence force had been exhausted. Yun Xie was naturally not afraid of him. Annihilation evil cloud, annihilation strike. Die. At the thought of this, Yun Xie no longer held back. The aura around his body skyrocketed as a gigantic annihilation nefarious cloud slashed down from the sky. A devastating attack was unleashed, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. A violent power erupted, sweeping across the heavens and earth. Kill! Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. With a roar, the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast rushed into the sky. Like a ball of blazing fire, it rushed towards the huge black spear in the sky. In the void, one spear and one beast, black and red, clashed. The two huge figures got closer and closer and finally collided. Boom! There was a loud sound, like thunder from the 9th heaven. The huge spear shadow bombarded the head of the crimson beast, and an endless amount of power suddenly exploded. Black and red splendors shot out from the void, intertwining with each other, dazzling. Chi. The space was squeezed and distorted by the confrontation between the two forces. An ear-piercing sound rang out, causing one's heart to tremble. Crack, crack, crack. A terrifying force rushed towards the ground. The ground could not withstand the impact of the violent force and was torn apart. The courtyard behind Nye Tian was on the verge of collapse. Chapter 11:20. Seeing this, Nye Tian's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain spreading from the top of his head to the rest of his body. Little 9. Nye Tian cried out as his blood qi started to spread. Suddenly, a terrifying sword intent shot up to the sky and enveloped his body. In the next moment, Nye Tian immediately understood what had happened. His heart was filled with wild joy, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. He took a step forward, and his body rose from the ground. The heaven-slash sword appeared in his hand, and he directly attacked Yun Xie with his sword. Yun Xie was being held back by the 9-pole Chaos Beast. He did not expect Nye Tian to be able to fight again. What was even stranger was that he suddenly realized that Nye Tian's sword intent had become stronger. It was even more terrifying than before. How is this possible? Yun Xie was stunned. He could not believe what he was seeing. Why did Nye Tian, whose essence force had been depleted, suddenly become stronger? Could it be? The next moment, Yun Xie thought of a possibility. His eyes widened and his face turned pale. He suddenly realized that Nie Tian's sword Dao realm had increased. There was only one explanation for Nie Tian's sword intense sudden increase in strength, which was the advancement of his sword Dao. Yun Xie's guess was right. Nie Tian had increased his sword Dao realm from the sword soul realm to the sword soul realm. Nie Tian had been stuck at the peak of the sword soul realm for a long time. He just lacked an opportunity to break through. Now that he was being suppressed by Yun Xie and the nine-pole chaos beast was injured, his blood qi was burning to the extreme. His sword aura was at its peak. This was the opportunity for him to break through. However, Yun Xie was not completely right. Other than his sword Dao realm increase, Nie Tian had also undergone an even more terrifying transformation. He had condensed the soul-devouring sword intent. Soul-devouring sword intent. The moment Nie Tian leaped into the air, the Sword Elder's voice rang out in his mind. Because of his extreme excitement, his voice was extremely high-pitched. The Sword Elder would never have thought that Nie Tian would actually condense the soul-devouring sword essence at this moment. Oh my God! The Sword Elder was so excited that he choked and choked. The shock in his heart was indescribable. When he passed the soul-devouring sword formation to Nie Tian, he faintly felt that the latter would definitely be able to comprehend the soul-devouring sword intent. But he never thought that Nie Tian actually condensed the soul-devouring sword intent in such a short time. The Sword Elder had obtained the soul-devouring sword array for hundreds of thousands of years. Every day, he would comprehend the sword intent within the sword array, but he was still unable to condense the soul-devouring sword intent. However, Nie Tian had only used a few months' time to magically condense the soul-devouring sword intent. How could the Sword Elder not be shocked? How could he not be stunned? This brat is too scary. After the Sword Elder calmed down, his heart trembled as he spoke. Sky-devouring blood. At this moment, Nie Tian released all of his blood qi once again. This was the most powerful move of the taboo move, blood devours the heavens. The proud sword intent, the star soul sword intent, the thunderbolt sword intent, and the soul-devouring sword intent. The four great sword intents fused together. Coupled with the power of the forbidden technique, this sword was Nie Tian's strongest move since his rebirth. Boom! In the void, the sword intent condensed in an instant. An enormous sword shadow, like a dragon emerging from the abyss, fiercely pounced forward. Suddenly, the void trembled and the earth trembled. The momentum of the heaven and earth was stretched by the frightening sword intent until it distorted, emitting a dull groan. Yun Xie was still in shock. Just as he was about to react, his eyes met the blood-red sword shadow. He felt his soul tremble violently. His mind actually went into a trance for a moment. The soul-devouring sword intent devoured souls and contained an extremely frightening spiritual attack. Yun Xie was caught off guard. It was difficult for him to withstand the spiritual attack of the soul-devouring sword intent, and he actually went into a trance for a moment. This momentary absent-mindedness would completely ruin his chances of survival. How could Yun Xie have imagined that Nie Tian, who was already an arrow at the end of its flight, would be able to explode forth with such astonishing power in an instant? Don't kill him! Just as Yun Xie's life was hanging by a thread, a mighty voice reverberated through the skies. In the next instant, a powerful palm energy shot towards Yun Xie. Although that person was already attacking with all his might, however, he was still a step too late. The blood-red sword whizzed past. Yun Xie did not even have the chance to let out a final shriek before his body was engulfed by the sword intent. Not a single trace of him remained. Nie Tian stabbed out with his sword. His martial body was already at its limit. His body trembled in midair, and he was on the verge of collapsing. With a thought, the nine-top chaos beast returned to the primal chaos origin coffin. This time, the ninth extreme chaos beast was injured. A glaring scar was left on its head and back. It would probably take a long time for it to recover. However, Nye Tian's ninth extreme chaos beast was different from other people's. Ordinary martial artists' martial bodies were closely connected to their primordial spirit. If one was injured, both would be injured. However, the connection between Nye Tian and the ninth extreme chaos beast was not that close. They were two different bodies. The ninth extreme chaos beast even had its own consciousness. Hence, even if the ninth extreme chaos beast was injured, the reflection of the injury on Nye Tian's body would not be that obvious. At that moment, Nye Tian's figure stood tall in midair. His entire body was covered in blood, and a bitter smile hung on his face. The fusion of 4 different sword intents, coupled with the forbidden technique, had finally killed Yun Xie. However, right after Yun Xie died, an even stronger opponent appeared. Huang Tianfei, come out! Nye Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and called out a familiar name. Nye Tian, I didn't expect that you're actually really alive. As his voice faded, a black-clothed figure arrived in the air, the killing intent all over his body piercing to the extreme. Nye Tian raised his head slightly and looked at the newcomer. The other party's face was hidden in the black robes, but the aura and voice on his body were all familiar to him. Huang Tianfei, I also didn't expect that you're still alive. Looks like I was too confident with that sword back then. I actually didn't kill you, Nye Tian said coolly, the corners of his mouth revealing a trace of a bitter smile. The person in front of him was called Huang Tianfei, the Azura sect's deputy sect master. Over 100 years ago, Nye Tian had once exchanged blows with Huang Tianfei. The process was very simple. Just one sword, and the latter was directly sent flying. At that time, he thought that Huang Tianfei was already dead. He did not expect that he was actually still alive. It seemed like his strength even increased, and he actually reached 8th level Heavenly Emperor. Nye Tian, looks like this seat didn't make this trip in vain. If I didn't appear today, wouldn't I have let you escape again? Huang Tianfei said Nye Tian coldly. The enmity of that sword back then, he had always remembered it in his heart. It was just that later, Nye Tian died at Luo Chenhuan's hands, making him have no hope of taking revenge. He only regretted not being able to kill Nye Tian with his own hands. But who could have thought that over 100 years later, Nye Tian reincarnated? Furthermore, his strength was only a mere 2nd level Heavenly Emperor. This was simply a chance for revenge bestowed to him by heaven. The former Heaven Realm's #1 war god, a mission comparable to the 9 emperors, but now, he became 2nd level Heavenly Emperor trash. Truly laughable. Huang Tianfei looked askance at Nye Tian and said sinisterly, his eyes flickering with a venomous light. Nye Tian's gaze turned slightly intent. The current him was indeed unable to contend with Huang Tianfei. Chapter 11:21. Just as Huang Tianfei was being insolent, Long Outyin suddenly appeared, his entire body releasing a berserk aura, his entire body suffused with wild fighting intent. His entire person was like an unsheathed wild blade, sharp and domineering. Finally came out. When Nye Tian saw that Long Outyin finally appeared, the corners of his mouth curled into a hint of a bitter smile. If the latter still did not come out, he would really be annihilated by Huang Tianfei. Nye Tian's divine sense swept across Long Outyen's body. The latter fused very well with the 8 desolate ghost bone. It seemed like the Een corpse curse mark in his body had already started to be absorbed by the 8 desolate ghost bone. His entire person looked much sharper and did not have that depressed and aged appearance from before. Nye Tian reckoned that after the 8 desolate ghost bone thoroughly absorbed the Een corpse curse mark on Long Outyen's essence meridian, the latter's strength could very easily reach 9th level Heavenly Emperor. 9th level Heavenly Emperor's strength was already the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm's pinnacle strength. In the entire Heaven Realm's Divine Realm, Those able to reach this strength were only around several hundred people. Of course, there were also differences between ninth-level heavenly emperors. Extremely few people could reach the true peak heavenly emperor like the 9 emperors. You're Long Outyen? Huang Tianfei saw an 8th-level heavenly emperor martial artist suddenly appear. When he saw the other party's face clearly, shock and astonishment appeared in his eyes. He did not expect that the legendary Heaven Realms number 1 madman would actually appear here. Yoho, you still recognize your father? Long Outyen smiled ostentatiously, incomparably arrogant, completely not taking Huang Tianfei in his eyes. He immediately turned to Nie Tian and chuckled, saying, "Big brother, you go and rest. Leave this little bastard to me, brother." Nie Tian nodded slightly, his figure landing. The current him was already depleted of essence energy, blood energy depleted, and stellar power was also exhausted. If he were to fight with Huang Tianfei, that would really be striking a rock with an egg. The outcome would absolutely be too horrible to look at. Nie Tian, are you alright? Mo Rushi came to Nie Tian's side and injected a surge of essence energy into Nie Tian's body. The latter's pale face regained some color. I'm fine. Nie Tian smiled faintly. As long as he didn't die, he could quickly recover. Seeing that both Mo Rushi and Cher were fine, Nie Tian was relieved. This time, it was a blessing in disguise. Not only did his sword soul make another breakthrough, but more importantly, it allowed him to condense the soul-devouring sword intent in a desperate situation. This allowed Nie Tian's battle prowess to improve by leaps and bounds. Now, every stab of his sword contained an extremely terrifying spiritual attack. This was a very abnormal combat power. In a battle between powerhouses, a split second of distraction could lead to a completely different outcome. Mr. At this time, Shuiyong's figure also appeared, and he was extremely surprised to see Nie Tian injured. You're finally fine. Nie Tian smiled bitterly. Shuiyong, this brat, had to go through so much trouble just to eat a spirit pill. It really made him speechless. But Shuiyong did not disappoint people too much and already successfully broke through to 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. Long Outyen, you'd best not interfere in this matter. You're very clear what kind of person Nie Tian is. Who made me come to kill him, you're also very clear. So, at this time, Huang Tianfei looked at Long Outyen and spoke cautiously, seemingly a little afraid of the latter. Long Outyen was a powerhouse who had already made a name for himself a long time ago. Over 100 years ago, he dared to provoke anyone, arrogant until he even looked down on the Heaven Realm's 9 emperors. Huang Tianfei did not know what happened to Long Outyen, so he was very wary of the latter. Your mother's egg, I know. Long Outyen did not give Huang Tianfei a chance to finish speaking at all and directly roared angrily, Nie Tian is my big brother. You want to kill him and still don't let me interfere. Was your brain kicked by Luo Chenhun or squeezed by Azura Gate Lord? Long Outyen, you. Huang Tianfei was angered until his face turned purple by Long Outyen's one sentence. He did not expect that the latter was so arrogant, not even showing respect to Heavenly Emperor Day Knight and Azura Gate Lord. What about you? Your father will give you 2 choices. The first is to scram yourself, and the second is for me to make you scram. Which do you choose? Long Outyen laughed wildly as if Huang Tianfei was simply a nobody in his eyes. One had to know, Huang Tianfei was Azura Gate's deputy sect lord. Furthermore, his strength reached 8th-level Heavenly Emperor, the same cultivation as Long Outyen. As expected, he's still the number 1 madman. When Nie Tian saw how overbearing Long Outyen was, he could not help but shake his head. Although over 100 years had passed, the latter's character did not change at all. He was still boundlessly arrogant. Shuiyong was dumbfounded watching by the side. He did not expect that his teacher could actually be arrogant to such an extent. Long Outyen, you're too arrogant. Huang Tianfei was unable to restrain his anger. Even if Long Outyen was a famous powerhouse, he could not be so condescending. Your father has been insolent before. Long Outyen smiled cold. His arrogant attitude was arrogant to the extreme, making people wish that they could go forward and tear him apart. Unforgivable! Huang Tianfei was thoroughly enraged and could no longer control himself. With a furious roar, the aura around his body suddenly soared. A humanoid phantom appeared behind him. It was as large as 100 meters and directly slapped down with a palm. The aura that suddenly erupted was like Mount Tai crushing down, vast and mighty. Teacher, watch out! Shui Yong couldn't help but cry out in shock when he saw this scene, and his face turned ghastly pale. Nie Tian had an indifferent expression instead. If Long Outyen, who possessed the octogenarian ghost bone, was unable to even resist this palm strike, then he would really be trash to his grandmother. That's something that's only a 3-year-old kid. Watch out my ass. Sure enough, Long Outyen roared madly with laughter, and he didn't even spare it a glance before he directly smashed out with his fist. It was the octogenarian ghost bone. Bang! Instantly, evil and violent octogenarian ghost energy effused out like tempestuous waves, and it condensed into an enormous black-colored fist in midair before it rumbled down towards Huang Tianfei. Rumble! At the instant the fist and palm collided, an explosion erupted in midair, and then the palm suddenly stopped moving. It was unable to endure the all-powerful force of the octogenarian ghost energy, and it directly shattered into pieces. In the next moment, a miserable shrill cry resounded while Huang Tianfei's figure was blasted flying, and he drew out a bloody trail in midair. One punch, merely just one punch, Long Outyen instantly defeated Huang Tianfei. When Nie Tian and the rest saw this scene, they involuntarily sucked in a cold breath, their faces turning stiff. Nie Tian knew that Huang Tianfei was not Long Outyen's match, but he did not expect that he was defeated so cleanly, so thoroughly. It seemed like Long Outyen and the octogenarian ghost bone fused very well, exceeding Nie Tian's expectations. According to this degree, Long Outyen should be able to break through to the 9th level Heavenly Emperor realm very soon. But at this time, Long Outyen gave a cry of surprise and frowned slightly. Turning his head to look at Nie Tian, he said with an unhappy look, "Big brother, this octogenarian ghost bone of yours wouldn't be a fake, right? Even 4 great profound arms. Why is it that one punch can't even kill a cripple?" Long Outyen did not manage to insta-kill Huang Tianfei with one punch and seemed to be very unhappy. Nie Tian had black lines on his face and immediately had an impulse to kick Long Outyen. This guy was a classic case of flaunting his innocence after getting an advantage. Although Long Outyen's punch earlier was not able to kill Huang Tianfei, it severely injured the latter. At this time, even if Huang Tianfei was lent 10,000 gallbladders, he absolutely would not dare to appear again. Chapter 11:22. In the main hall of the small courtyard, Nie Tian and the rest took their seats one after another. After experiencing a fierce battle just now, Nie Tian was already exhausted. Only now did his complexion improve. "Big brother, are you alright?" Long Outyen's current state was very good, feeling his whole body bursting with strength. He saw Nie Tian's worried look and could not help saying, "Big brother, don't worry, I'll definitely protect you guys. Forget about some Azura assassin coming, even if Azura sect sovereign and Luo Chenhun come personally, I'll make them never return." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and he could not help shaking his head with a bitter smile. Long Outyen was good in all aspects, just that he was too arrogant, always bursting with self-confidence. Although his current strength was already very strong, if he encountered a peak powerhouse like Azura sect sovereign or Luo Chenhun, he would not have the strength to fight at all. To put it bluntly, it was difficult for Long Outyen to want to defeat ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists now. But to be able to see Long Outyen regain his confidence, Nie Tian was still very happy. "Outyen, I have a favor to ask of you." At this time, Nietion's eyes suddenly became solemn, seemingly already thinking for a long time. Big brother, say it. Even if you want my head, I'll immediately cut it off and give it to you. Long Outyen said casually. Although it was a joke, it revealed extreme sincerity. Nietion sighed lightly, then glanced at Emo-Rushi and Cher and said, Outyen, I want you to send the two of them to Divine Cold Hall and hand them over to Mao Xianglong. Divine Cold Hall. When Long Outyen heard this place, his gaze involuntarily darkened and he said, Big brother wants Mao Xianglong to protect them? Nietion nodded solemnly, his expression somewhat solemn. With his current strength, he really had no way to protect Emo-Rushi and Cher. If he let Emo-Rushi and Cher stay in Divine Cold Hall, he could guarantee their safety. Frost Emperor Mao Xianglong was a peak expert and had the ability to protect anyone. Nietion speculated that even if the person who left the mark of a saint on Emo-Rushi knew that she was in the Divine Cold Palace, he would not dare to go and capture her. Because if he did that, his identity would be exposed, and he might not be able to take Mao Xianglong away from him. Cold Emperor is Tan San Er's lover. Since she's Big Brother's woman, I'm sure she won't refuse. Long Outyen nodded and said seriously. Boring 3 was the nickname that Long Outyen gave to Nietion's third disciple, Qingju. This was because Qingju was very low-key and didn't usually speak much. As for Long Outyen referring to Emo-Rushi and Cher as his women, he naturally wouldn't mind it. Long Outyen was just like that, always speaking carelessly. Emo-Rushi and Cher looked at Nietion and didn't say anything, but their eyes were filled with sparkling light. Big brother, what about you? Long Outyen suddenly sensed something and asked in surprise. I'm going to the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range to look for something. Nietion nodded solemnly. He didn't plan to go to the Divine Cold Palace with Long Outyen, but decided to split up. No matter what, Nietion had to go to the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range to look for the 3 Lives Grass. Moreover, he knew that the people sent by the Azura's Gate would be stronger than the current ones. Even if he stayed by Long Outyen's side, he wouldn't be of much help. Instead, he might become a burden. With Long Outyen's current strength, as long as the person who attacked wasn't the Azura's Gate Patriarch or Luo Chenhun, he had the ability to protect Emo-Rushi and Cher. Moreover, if the person who attacked saw that Nietion wasn't around, they might not make a move on Long Outyen. Nietion, are you leaving us? Cher looked at Nietion, unable to stop the tears in her eyes from flowing down her cheeks. Cher, I will come find you, Nietion said solemnly. He had no other choice but to make such a decision. Cher, don't cry, I will be with you. Emo-Rushi's heart was filled with sadness, but she still pretended to be strong and comforted Cher. Watching this scene, Long Outyen grinned mischievously, saying, Sisters-in-law, rest assured, even if Long Outyen has to risk his old life, he will definitely ensure your safety. Thank you, little uncle. Emo-Rushi squeezed out a smile, expressing her gratitude. But you look so scary, Cher whispered as she looked at Long Outyen. Nietion chuckled, saying, Cher, don't worry, although he looks a little fierce, he is definitely a good person, he will definitely protect you. Cher nodded lightly, holding Emo-Rushi's hand tightly. Long Outyen laughed, saying, Big brother, what do you mean by look a little fierce? I look extremely fierce. Nietion's face darkened, this guy was so proud of his fierce looks. Outyen, there's no time to lose, leave immediately. Nietion knew that once Huang Tianfei returned to the Azura's Gate, he would spread the news, and at that time, even more powerful assassins would come to kill them. If Nietion had an 8th Order spacetime scroll, he could directly send Emo-Rushi and the others to the Divine Cold Temple, and things would be much simpler. However, even in the Heaven World's God domain, an 8th Order spacetime scroll was extremely rare. The Heaven World's God domain was an upper plane, the spatial stability was very high. Only rank 8 and above spacetime scrolls could achieve spacetime transfer. Unfortunately, Nye Tian did not have a rank 8 spacetime scroll in his hands. And Long Outyen immediately stood up, his expression somewhat nervous. He naturally understood Mo Rushi and Cher's importance to Nye Tian. Hence, even if he lost his life, he must ensure the two girls' safety. Mo Rushi and Cher slowly stood up, finally preparing to leave. After a moment, everyone arrived outside the small courtyard. Stinking brat, you must protect Big Brother well, understand? Long Outyen made Shui Yong stay by Nye Tian's side to protect the latter's safety. Although Shui Yong was not considered a top powerhouse, he also had 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength, considered a pretty good guard. Teacher, rest assured, I'll definitely protect Mr. Nye well. Shui Yong nodded heavily. For him to be able to break through to 5th-level Heavenly Emperor realm, it was still all thanks to Nye Tian's 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart Pill. Coupled with that he already knew Nye Tian's identity, he would naturally do his best to protect. Big Brother, I need roughly 2 days to go to the Divine Cold Hall. As long as I send the 2 sisters-in-law to Cold Emperor's hands, I'll go to Heavenly Desolate Unaging to look for you. Long Outyen looked at Nye Tian and still said worriedly. Now that Nye Tian's identity was already exposed, Azura's Gates people would charge over in an endless stream. He was in danger at any time. I'm fine, I'll leave the 2 of them to you. Nye Tian nodded solemnly and said once more. Big Brother, rest assured. I, Long Outyen, can be beheaded, but nothing must happen to the 2 sisters-in-law. Long Outyen laughed and did not stay any longer, turning around and leaving. Mo Rushi and Cher took one last look at Nye Tian and left with Long Outyen. Chapter 11:23. Nye Tian stood outside the small courtyard until the figures of Mo Rushi and the others completely disappeared, then he returned to the courtyard. Mister, are we going to the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range now? I heard that something big happened there recently. Shui Yong, who was following behind Nye Tian, suddenly said. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he immediately smiled and said, What happened? I'm not too sure, but it seems that someone found an earth vein with extremely rich heaven and earth spiritual energy there. It seems that the legendary heaven and earth spiritual pool has appeared there. Shui Yong said with a frown, his eyes revealing an unconcealable passion. Heaven and earth spiritual pool. Hearing these words, Nye Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble violently, and his expression became slightly sluggish. Of course, he knew what the heaven and earth spiritual pool was. It was a legendary pool formed by the purest heaven and earth spiritual energy. Rumor had it that cultivating in the heaven and earth spiritual pool could not only break through the limit of a martial artist's martial body's ability to absorb heaven and earth spiritual energy, it could even improve a martial artist's martial body. If a martial artist with a heaven and earth spiritual body entered the heaven and earth spiritual pool, their heaven and earth spiritual body could achieve a breakthrough. There was even a rumor that a martial artist who died not long ago could be resurrected on the spot after being placed in the heaven and earth spiritual pool. Of course, these were just rumors. What the real heaven and earth spiritual pool looked like, no one knew. In the past, there was often news of the discovery of the heaven and earth spiritual pool in the celestial realm. However, it was later confirmed that it was just an earth vein with slightly richer heaven and earth spiritual energy. Heaven and earth spiritual energy was originally an extremely pure energy. It was almost impossible to liquefy it. It could only be achieved in a special environment. Nye Tian had specially studied the heaven and earth spiritual pool before. In the end, he came to the conclusion that it was impossible for a heaven and earth spiritual pool to appear in the celestial realm because the space was not stable enough. Even if the heaven and earth spiritual energy was rich enough, it could not liquefy. That kind of extremely compressed energy would cause the space to become unstable. It was easy to create spatial cracks and absorb the liquefied heaven and earth spiritual energy into them. Sigh. Nie Tian couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Although he didn't believe that the heaven and earth spiritual pool had appeared, others definitely believed it. Therefore, many people would enter the heaven and earth spiritual mountain. Hopefully, this won't cause me any trouble in finding the 3 lives grass, Nie Tian thought to himself. Shui Yong, I'm going to rest for a day. After that, we'll go to the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range. Nie Tian said to Shui Yong and walked into his room. Shui Yong nodded in agreement. He knew that Nie Tian needed to recover his strength, so he waited outside the room. Mo Rushi and the others had already left for the Divine Cold Palace, so the people chasing after them would not come here. Instead, they would look for Mo Rushi and the others. By the time Luo Chenhun reacted, Nie Tian had already left Liangwu City. After entering the room, Nie Tian thoroughly examined his body. There were no major problems. The wounds on his body had already healed, but his essence power and blood qi had yet to recover. Nie Tian entered the Primal Chaos original coffin. The 9-top Chaos Beast's injuries were not light. There was a frightening scar from its head to its shoulder. Master, Brother Jiu's injuries are very serious. I'm afraid he will need a few months to recover. You won't be able to use your giant spirit true body for these few months. The corpse Luo Demon Lord sighed and said. Actually, he was very curious. Why didn't the 9-top Chaos Beast's injuries appear on Nie Tian's body? It was as if Nie Tian and the 9-top Chaos Beast were 2 completely independent entities. Yeah. At this moment, little Jiu had already become very small, just like when it was born. Its scarlet body seemed to be surging with flames. It called out to Nie Tian twice, as if it had smelled something good. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Of course, he knew what little Jiu wanted. So, he took out a 7-turn dragon heart pill and threw it over. Little Jiu leaped up lightly and caught it with its little claws. Without hesitation, it swallowed it. Following that, its 2 big round eyes suddenly flashed as it looked at Nie Tian again. You're really greedy. Nie Tian had a speechless look, but he still took out another 7-turn dragon heart pill and threw it over. Little Jiu caught it and swallowed it directly. Then, it actually burped as if it was already full. Its body curled up, and it lay on the ground and slept soundly. The 7-turn dragon heart pill was a tier 9 spirit pill. Even the 9-top Chaos Beast could not eat too much. With the medicinal effects of 2 7-turn dragon heart pills, little Jiu should be able to recover in a month's time. Nie Tian smiled faintly. After confirming that the 9-top Chaos Beast was fine, he left the Primal Chaos original coffin. I should also eat a dragon heart pill. Another 7-turn dragon heart pill appeared in Nie Tian's hand. He raised his head and swallowed it. Not only could the 7-turn dragon heart pill allow him to recover quickly, but it could also increase his strength to at least reach peak 2nd level Heavenly Emperor. But wanting to break through to 3rd level Heavenly Emperor was still not too possible. The reason why Shui Yong could borrow the 7-turn dragon heart pill to break through to 5th level Heavenly Emperor was that he himself had already stopped at 4th level Heavenly Emperor for as long as 30 years, while Nie Tian had just broken through to 2nd level Heavenly Emperor. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Arg! The instant the dragon heart pill entered the body, Nie Tian felt a violent force impact open up in his body and actually could not resist crying out in shock. Only at this time did he know that the dragon heart pill's medicinal effects were even more horrifying than he imagined. No wonder Shui Yong took such a long time to digest the dragon heart pill. One day later, Nie Tian walked out of the room, his entire person glowing with health and vigor, completely without the paleness from before. At this time, his strength reached peak 2nd level Heavenly Emperor. Essence energy, blood energy, stellar power, mental strength were all in their optimal state. His entire person was like an unsheathed sharp sword, revealing its edge. Mr. Yu. When Shui Yong saw Nie Tian's aura, he could not help being stunned, and could not speak for a long time. Last night, He clearly sensed that Nye Tian expended too much blood energy, his martial body extremely weak. Even a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor's strength also needed at least 10 days before he could completely recover. Now, just a day passed and Nye Tian fully recovered. This was also too strange. How could Shui Yong know that Nye Tian had the Chaos Origin coffin? 1 day was 10 days to him. Coupled with the Dragon Vein and Stellar Origin stone in his body, he could naturally recover completely. Nye Tian ignored Shui Yong's surprise and said with a faint smile, "Shui Yong, let's go to Liangwu City and see if there's anyone going to the profound Yellow Mountain Range. Hitch a ride." Before long, Nye Tian and Shui Yong appeared at the Zhu family's mercenary field and ran into Li Quan once more. "Mr. Nye, you're going to the profound Yellow Mountain Range too?" Li Quan looked at Nye Tian and exclaimed with a look of surprise. He did not expect that after not seeing for a day, Nye Tian's aura seemed to have strengthened again. Nye Tian was still a 1st-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist a few days ago, but now, he was already peak 2nd-level Heavenly Emperor. This kind of improvement speed was too terrifying. Furthermore, he was also very surprised that Nye Tian actually wanted to go to the profound Yellow Mountain Range too. But thinking about it, he also understood. The legendary Heaven-Earth Spirit Pool appeared in the profound Illusion Mountain Range. Nye Tian naturally had to go and join in the fun. Thinking up to here, Li Quan laughed and said, "Our family's eldest miss also wants to go to the profound Yellow Mountain Range. Just nice, we can go together." Chapter 11:24. Hearing that Zhu Lian and the others were also going to the Xianwang Mountain Range, Nye Tian immediately thought that they were going for the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. "Elderly, will Miss Zhu Lian bring Zhu Ru'er with her?" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed as he asked. "Yes." Li Quan nodded. "Miss Zhu Lian believes that as long as we can find the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool and let the second miss bathe in it, it might be able to cure her meridians." Nye Tian was not surprised by Li Quan's words. He had already guessed this. Zhu Lian wanted to use the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool to cure Zhu Ru'er's martial meridian body. It was a good idea, but it was too childish. Let's not talk about whether the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool had the power to cure a martial meridian body. Even if it did, the existence of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool was another matter. Taking a step back, if the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool really did exist, it would attract countless experts. Could the Zhu family be strong enough to monopolize the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool? Nye Tian understood this, but he did not say it out loud. Instead, he asked Li Quan, "Elderly, when do you plan to leave?" "My master and son-in-law have already left. Miss Zhu Er's body isn't too good right now, so we've been delayed. But we'll be leaving soon." Li Quan nodded, as if he was very confident in snatching the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. Nye Tian looked at Li Quan and couldn't help but frown. He thought to himself, maybe the Zhu family really has some amazing power behind them. The appearance of a Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool in the Xianwang Mountain Range would definitely shock the entire Dongchuan Divine Realm. Any power with a little bit of power would covet the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. After all, it was a treasure that only existed in legends. After a short while, Li Quan brought Nye Tian and Shui Yong to the mercenary hall. A huge iron-backed dragonhawk was hovering in the sky. Dozens of martial artists were standing there, and Zhu Lian was standing in the middle of them all. Beside Zhu Lian was an exquisite mobile room. Needless to say, inside the room was her sister Zhu Ru'er. Li Quan walked over and said to Zhu Lian, "Eldest miss, Mr. Nye also wants to go to the Xianwang Mountain Range and wants to travel with us." Zhu Lian glanced at Nye Tian. His eyes were cold and even contained a trace of killing intent. After thinking for a moment, he coldly said, "Nye Tian, if you want to go with us to the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range, you must have an identity. How about you become a guard of my Zhu clan?" "Eldest miss, you've gone too far. My family's mister is only taking the iron-backed dragonhawk along the way." What right do you have to make him your Jew family's bodyguard? Without waiting for Nie Tian to speak, Shui Yong stepped forward and spoke with an angry expression. Shui Yong knew Nie Tian's identity, so how could he casually become someone else's guard? Li Quan was stunned. He did not expect Shui Yong to stand up for Nie Tian. In his impression, Shui Yong had always been the kind of person who would not retaliate or speak up unless the person being scolded was his teacher. Did this brat take the wrong medicine? Eldest Miss is talking about Nie Tian, not his teacher? Li Quan looked at Shui Yong with a puzzled expression and said in his heart. Looking at Shui Yong's reaction, it seemed that Nie Tian's status was already equal to his teacher's. Who do you think you are? Julian frowned and looked at Shui Yong coldly. I heard that you were hired by Nie Tian yesterday. Don't you know who your master is? You are a mercenary of the Zhu clan. Before the contract expires, I am your master. You are just a dog. How dare you bark in front of your master? Eldest Miss, you. Shui Yong's face turned red from Julian's words. He was so angry that he could not speak. Although he had a mercenary contract with the Zhu clan, he was a warrior. He was absolutely not someone's dog. At this time, Nie Tian's face suddenly became gloomy. He had already sensed the killing intent in Julian's eyes, but he did not know where it came from. Miss Zhu Yong's eyes flashed with coldness. He stared at Julian and said coldly, Miss Zhu, there are some things that can be said and some things that can't be said. If you apologize to my friend now, I will pretend that I didn't say what you just said. Nie Tian had interacted with Julian before. He knew that she was a cold and emotionless person. Apart from being nice to her sister, she was not polite to others. Moreover, this woman changed her attitude very quickly. If you were useful to her, she would respect you. If you were useless, she would kick you away. Nie Tian did not want to have too much contact with this kind of person. However, since it was convenient, he thought that they would go to the Xianwang mountain range together. After arriving there, she would look for her heaven and earth spiritual pool, and he would look for his 3 lives grass. Who knew that Julian would be so heartless? She actually asked him to be her guard for free and even insulted Shui Yong. He could not accept this. Apologize. Julian glanced at Nie Tian as if she had heard a joke. She laughed coldly and said, Who do you think you are? You are just an ant from the Sumer world. You are not worthy of me apologizing. Nie Tian's face suddenly darkened. He did not expect Julian to be so arrogant. Mr. Nie, our first miss said something wrong. This old man apologizes on her behalf. Please forgive her. Li Quan said nervously as he sensed Nie Tian suddenly releasing an ice-cold killing intent. Unfortunately, it was too late. Nie Tian suddenly took a step forward. His whole body's aura exploded and enveloped Julian. He had tolerated this woman for a long time. If he did not teach her a lesson, she would really think that he was a pushover. Ah! Julian felt a huge sword intent enveloping her. It was as if there was an invisible giant hand pressing down on her. She actually felt a strong sense of suffocation. Her chest suddenly heaved up and down violently. Her pretty face turned red. Nie Tian, you dare to make a move against me? Julian forcefully endured a breath and made a sound with difficulty. She actually discovered that under Nie Tian's pressure, she could not even release her sword intent. Just a few days ago, Nie Tian was still a first-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist with the same strength as her. Now, he could actually crush her just by relying on aura pressure. This made her unable to understand. First miss. When the surrounding several dozen martial artists saw Julian being controlled by Nie Tian, they immediately became nervous and shouted in unison. Their faces were at daggers drawn, wanting to make a move. I'll see who dares to move. At this time, Shui Yong roared. His entire body's aura burst out. It was as if an invisible mountain appeared, turning into an invisible giant force that spread out. Everyone actually could not withstand this force and retreated one after another. These people were all high-level mercenaries of the mercenary field. They were familiar with Shui Yong and naturally knew Shui Yong's prowess. But they sensed at this time that Shui Yong's strength was much stronger than before, simply having a qualitative leap. He could already rely on aura to suppress them. Shui Yong he broke through to 5th level Heavenly Emperor. Suddenly, someone reacted and cried out. When the others heard this person's words, their pupils suddenly constricted, their eyes filled with shock. Chapter 11:25. This. Li Quan noticed that Shui Yong's strength had increased. He was stunned for a moment before he understood what was going on. He looked at Nie Tian. Nie Tian was an 8th-stage alchemist. It must be thanks to him that Shui Yong was able to break through. No wonder Shui Yong was so respectful to him. The mercenaries of the Zhu family were shocked by Shui Yong's roar. They all looked afraid and didn't dare to take another step forward. Lord Nie Tian, my first miss is still young, and her words were thoughtless. Please forgive her. Li Quan's face was pale with fright, and he hurriedly apologized to Nie Tian. Nie Tian's face was cold. He stared at Zhu Love and said, I'll say it again. Apologize. Nie Tian didn't want to hurt anyone, especially a woman who was weaker than him. But if Zhu Love insisted, he didn't mind making her suffer. Nie Tian, this is Marshal Liang City. If you dare to harm even a hair on my head, I guarantee that both you and your dog will die here. Zhu Love's beautiful face was flushed red. She refused to let go of Nie Tian and continued to threaten him. Nie Tian's expression darkened slightly as killing intent flashed across his eyes. Mr. Nie. It was at this moment that a weak voice sounded out from a nearby room. Zhu Re walked out, her face as pale as snow. Her skin was translucent, as if it would shatter upon contact. Mr. Nie, I apologize on behalf of my sister. Please don't hurt her. Zhu Re spoke with difficulty. Her face was pale and delicate under the breeze. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He thought for a moment and then let go of Zhu Love. Zhu Love, for Miss Re-er's sake, I'll let you go this time. But I warn you, there won't be a second time. Remember, no one is your dog. Nie Tian didn't want to get angry, but Zhu Love kept insulting him, calling him a dog and an ant. It was intolerable. The pressure on Zhu Lian's body was released, and her complexion was much better. However, her eyes were still filled with panic. She had not expected Nie Tian's strength to be so tyrannical. Shui Yong, let's go. After what had happened, Nie Tian and Shui Yong could no longer travel with the Zhu family. They planned to leave Liangwu City and think of another way. Nie Tian. Just as Nie Tian and Shui Yong were about to leave, Zhu Lian suddenly called out. Miss Zhu, what else do you want? Nie Tian stopped, not looking back. For the sake of Zhu Re-er's plea, he had already let go of Zhu Lian. Was Zhu Re-er still going to be so stubborn? Nie Tian, if you dare to hurt me, my fiancé will definitely not let you off, Zhu Lian said coldly, her eyes flashing with intense killing intent. Fiancé? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He suddenly remembered that Li Quan had said that the Zhu family's patriarch and son-in-law had already gone to the Yellow Mountain Range. He guessed that the son-in-law Li Quan mentioned was Zhu Lian's fiancé. Zhu Lian had a very high temperament, and the Zhu family was very powerful. To be able to become the Zhu family's son-in-law, he must not be an ordinary person. However, even if this person was a genius from the heaven realm, Nie Tian was not afraid. Tell him to come and find me. I will wait for him. Nie Tianling responded coldly, and once again stepped forward, preparing to leave. Nie Tian. At this time, Zhu Lian's voice sounded again, revealing a touch of coldness. His name is Lin Yi. Lin Yi. Hearing this name, Nie Tian's body froze, and his face immediately sank. He had never thought that Zhu Lian's fiancé would be Lin Yi. Although he already knew that Zhu Lian and the rest seemed to have seen Lin Yi previously, He did not think that the two people would actually have this kind of relationship. It seemed like after Lin Yi came to the Heaven Realm's divine realm, he flourished, becoming the Zhu family's son-in-law so quickly. At this time, Nie Tian finally understood why Zhu Lian would reveal killing intent after seeing him. It turned out that it was because of Lin Yi. Zhu Lian must have told Lin Yi about him meeting Nie Tian, and the latter determined Nie Tian's identity and told Zhu Lian. Hence, Zhu Lian had such strong hostility towards Nie Tian. Understanding all this, Nie Tian calmed down instead. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and he said in his heart, "In this case, Lin Yi already knows that I came to the Heaven Realm's divine realm. Furthermore, he knows that I'm in Martial Liang City. He actually didn't come to find me. Interesting. Lin Yi's severed arm should have long recovered. Furthermore, he came to the Heaven Realm's divine realm earlier than Nie Tian. Hence, his current strength was at least second-level Heavenly Emperor. The reason why he didn't find Nie Tian might be that he felt that he didn't have absolute confidence in defeating Nie Tian. Lin Yi didn't want to borrow the Zhu family's strength. He just wanted to defeat Nie Tian personally. Eldest Miss Zhu, you don't understand what kind of person Lin Yi is. I advise you to stay away from him. Otherwise, you'll regret it." Nie Tian slowly turned around and said to Zhu Lian. Lin Yi was the kind of person who would do anything to achieve his goals. He was willing to be the Zhu family's son-in-law because he took a fancy to the Zhu family's power. And when his strength rose to a certain level and he no longer needed the Zhu family, he would absolutely dump the Zhu family without hesitation. Back then, in order to survive, he even used Lin Feng's life to threaten Nie Tian. One had to know that Lin Feng was his biological younger brother. A person who could even sacrifice his biological younger brother, would he still care about a Zhu family that basically had nothing to do with him? "You're afraid?" Zhu Lian smiled cold. She clearly misunderstood Nie Tian's meaning. She said, "In the Shimi world, you weren't a match for my husband. Now that you're in the celestial realm, you still won't be a match for him." Hearing Zhu Lian's words, Nie Tian frowned. He just smiled and didn't say anything. Even though Lin Yi was very strong, he would definitely lose in a direct confrontation with Nie Tian. It could even be said that Lin Yi was driven to the celestial realm by Nie Tian. As for what Lin Yi wanted to say, that was up to him. "I've already told you what I want to say. As for whether you want to listen or not, that's up to you." Nie Tian smiled indifferently. He didn't stay any longer and prepared to leave. At that moment, another iron-backed dragonhawk appeared in the sky. Its gigantic body was even more terrifying than the Zhu family's iron-backed dragonhawk. Roar! When the iron-backed dragonhawk appeared, a monstrous pressure spread through the atmosphere. The Zhu family's iron-backed dragonhawk sensed that it was in danger. It wailed, flapped its wings and flew away. Iron-backed draconic eagles. The Zhu family members cried out in alarm when they saw this. That iron-backed dragonhawk was supposed to carry them to the Xianhuang mountain range, but it had been scared away by another iron-backed dragonhawk. "Little Iron!" shouted Zhu Lian. She wanted to call the iron-backed dragonhawk back, but it flew further and further away. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. "That's..." The members of the Zhu family were stunned. They didn't know what to do. The Zhu family didn't have many iron-backed dragonhawks. That was the last one, and it had been scared away. How were they supposed to go to the Xianhuang mountain range? Chapter 11:26. Zhu Lian was furious. The Zhu family members also became cautious, looking at the iron-backed dragonhawk in midair. "Sir, this iron-backed dragonhawk is so big." Shui Yong stood behind Nie Tian and said softly with a look of surprise. Nie Tian looked at that iron-backed dragonhawk and nodded, his brows involuntarily furrowing. The iron-backed dragonhawk was a rank 7 spirit beast. Ordinary ones were 500 to 600 meters in size, but this one in front of him exceeded 1,000 meters. Furthermore, its pair of eagle eyes were very sharp, flickering with a cold and poisonous light. It did not seem to be reared, but like wild. Nie Tian knew that wild ironback dragonhawks were even bigger and extremely aggressive. Although their offensive power was not strong, they were very hard to tame. For the people on the dragonhawk to be able to tame wild dragonhawks, it indicated that there was a high-level beast tamer existence among them. Nie Tian spread out his divine sense and sensed a bit, his brows involuntarily furrowing. There were not many people on the dragonhawk, only a dozen over. But each and every one of their auras was powerful, all third-level Heavenly Emperor and above strength. Furthermore, there was even a fourth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist and a fifth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist among them. When Zhu Lian's furious voice fell, no one on the ironback dragonhawk responded for a long time. "Bastard, are you all cowards? Don't dare to show your heads." Zhu Lian was even more furious, her brows knitting tightly, her exquisite pretty face trembling as she roared angrily again. "Yo-ho!" This time, someone finally responded, but it was an extremely disdainful voice, saying, "Liang Wuqing's Zhu family's eldest miss, what a temper!" The extremely mocking voice fell. Following that, a figure appeared. It was a handsome youth dressed in white, looking only 25 or 26 years old. His aura was retracted, but it still gave people a huge pressure. Fourth-level Heavenly Emperor. Nie Tian looked at that handsome youth, who was somewhat devilishly handsome, his gaze involuntarily trembling, the shock in his heart not small. This person's age was not old. To have such strength, he was definitely a famous genius in the Heaven Realm's divine realm. "He is." Sure enough, when the crowd saw that youth in white, they exclaimed one after another, their eyes all becoming dazed. "God Slayer young master." When Zhu Lian saw that person's face clearly, her beautiful eyes trembled violently, and she cried out a name, her entire expression instantly turning stiff. She did not expect the person to be one of the four great young masters of the East River Divine Realm, the God-Slayer young master. In the younger generation of the East River Celestial Realm, there were four extremely talented martial artists. They were known as the Four Young Masters, and the God-Slaying Young Master was one of them. Rumor had it that Child God-Slayer was cruel and bloodthirsty. He would kill anyone he didn't like. What was even more terrifying was that the God-Slayer Young Master was a member of the Heaven Murder Sect, one of the four major sects of the Dongchuan Divine Realm. Hence, very few people dared to offend him. Liang Wuqing's Zhu clan was considered a powerful second-rate force in the East River Divine Realm. However, the Heaven Murder Sect was one of the top first-rate forces. The Zhu clan couldn't compare at all. Zhu Lian's face paled as she recalled how she had told Child Godslayer to get off the stage. The Godslayer young master was a bloodthirsty and ruthless individual. He did not put the Zhu clan in his eyes at all. If Zhu Lian offended him, only death awaited her. After the other members of the Zhu clan found out about the other's identity, their qi immediately dispersed. Each of them became as quiet as a sheep, not daring to make a sound. They were afraid of attracting the Godslayer young master's attention and being killed for no reason. This Godslayer young master has such a strong qi. Nie Tian looked at the Godslayer young master, his eyes flashing as he thought to himself. He could feel that the Godslayer young master's qi was very heavy. This was the qi formed from killing people for a long time. Needless to say, this person was a bloodthirsty and ruthless individual. The God-Slayer young master stood on the back of the ironback dragon eagle. His gloomy eyes swept through the crowd like a hawk. Those who met his eyes all lowered their heads, not daring to look at him. However, there was only one silver-haired warrior who looked straight at young Master Godslayer. He didn't try to escape. There was no fear in his eyes, only calmness. The Godslayer young master's eyes narrowed and his mouth twitched. He sensed that Nie Tian was a second-level Heavenly Emperor, so he didn't take it to heart. Instead, he locked his eyes on Zhu Lian and said in a cold voice, "Young lady of the Zhu clan, you really have a bad temper. Your Ju clan's iron-backed dragon eagle is useless, scared away by this young master's dragon eagle. Can you blame this young master for that? You actually dared to tell this young master to roll down. Now that this young master has rolled down, what are you going to do? The deep voice carried an extremely playful tone, and at the same time, revealed extreme arrogance, causing people to shudder. Godslayer young master, I. Ju Lian's face was as white as paper, her chest was heaving up and down. Her forehead was covered in sweat, and even her back was drenched in cold sweat. Li Quan was so scared that his legs were trembling. How did he offend this Godslayer young master? Young lady of the Ju clan, this young master is not an unreasonable person. I'll give you a choice. Destroy your own Yuan Ling Yuan Meridian and kowtow to me 100 times. Then I'll spare your life. How about it? The Godslayer young master's face was cold, and a strange smile hung on the corner of his mouth. He spoke in a low voice, carrying a strong pressure. Godslayer young master is too generous. Young lady of the Ju clan is really lucky to be forgiven by Godslayer young master. Her ancestors must be burning incense. The moment the Godslayer young master's words fell, a burst of laughter came from behind him. It had to be said that the Godslayer young master was really magnanimous this time. If it was any other time, he would not only kill Julian, but also all the members of the Ju clan below. This was the Godslayer young master's personality. He wanted to kill and kill for fun. Even if Julian was a rare beauty, he would still kill her without hesitation. The reason why he spared her life today was because the Godslayer young master was happy. He wanted to go to the Xianwang mountain range to find the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool, and he was determined to get it. When the members of the Ju clan heard the Godslayer young master's request, they were stunned. Countless eyes focused on Julian, waiting for her reaction. Julian stood rooted to the ground, dumbstruck. Her entire body was sluggish, unable to react for a long time. The Godslayer young master was just as the rumors said, cruel and bloodthirsty. At that moment, Julian turned to look at Nie Tian. The look in her eyes wasn't one of distress, but one of extreme viciousness. Like a madman, she pointed at Nie Tian and shouted, "It's all your fault. You made me offend young Master Godslayer." Nie Tian was taken aback, and his face instantly darkened. With Julian's personality, even if Nie Tian hadn't angered her, she would still have gone crazy if she had seen her iron-backed draconic eagle run away. She would have offended the Godslayer young master just the same. "Sister!" Ju Roar suddenly shouted, her face filled with pain. "It has nothing to do with Mr. Nie." Julian was stunned. She turned to look at Ju Roar, and the anger in her eyes turned to despair. "Young lady of the Ju clan, I don't have the time to watch you act. Hurry up and make your decision." The Godslayer young master looked at Julian cold. Chapter 11:27. Julian had a look of despair, instantly losing all of her faith. All of her previous pride was shattered under Godslayer young master's killing intent. Her knees turned soft, and she was actually going to kneel down directly. It seemed like she was not a stubborn person and was not as proud as she appeared on the surface. It was just that she looked down on people weaker than her. She felt that Nie Tian could not afford to provoke her, so she dared to be arrogant in front of Nie Tian. But when a person like Godslayer young master appeared, she could only kneel. "Stand up!" Right at this time, an angry roar suddenly sounded out. Following that, a sharp air force flew over, making Julian's half-kneeling body freeze in midair. Julian was stunned, then looked at the silver-haired martial artist not far away. It was precisely Nie Tian. She did not expect that Nie Tian would stop her from kneeling at this time. The others were also stunned one after another. Following that, their gazes focused on Nie Tian, not knowing what the latter wanted to do. "Julian, you're a martial artist. Your younger sister uses you as a role model. How can you kneel to others in front of her?" Nie Tian glanced at Julian and said coldly. Although Julienne, this person was very irritating, at least she had one good point, which was to treat her younger sister well. It was also this point that made Nye Tian willing to help her once. Of course, there was another important reason why Nye Tian took action. That was that this God-slayer young master was too arrogant. Encountering this kind of person who was arrogant to his grandma's house, if Nye Tian did not take action, he would really feel stifled in his heart. Nye Tian had encountered many arrogant and despotic people before. But it seemed like God-slayer young master once again refreshed the height of arrogance. Just because of an angry roar, he made people cripple their own primordial spirit essence meridians, and even kneel down and kowtow 100 times. Such an arrogant person, if Nye Tian did not take care of him, he would be stifled until he got sick. Yo! When God-slayer young master saw Nye Tian suddenly make a move, he could not help laughing strangely. Following that, he looked at the ladder. After confirming that the ladder's strength was only second-level Heavenly Emperor, he smiled cold and said, "Want to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? If you dare to act like a hero and save a damsel in distress in front of this young master, you better be prepared to pay the price with your life." It was still a playful voice, and it seemed unusually ear-piercing and unreasonable. Nye Tian smiled and said, "I'm not interested in being a hero saving a beauty, but I'm interested in beating up a mad dog." Absolute love was indeed beautiful, but it was a pity that she was not Nye Tian's cup of tea. Moreover, either Mo Rushi or Cher could easily defeat absolute love, so he really was not a hero saving the damsel in distress. It was just that the God-slayer young master was too arrogant, forcing him to take action. Nye Tian's voice wasn't loud, but every word he spoke was like a clap of thunder that resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone's minds were in a daze, and their expressions became sluggish. In the Dongchuan divine realm, there was actually someone who dared to openly challenge young Master Godslayer. This was simply too exciting. Everyone's gazes were fixed on Nye Tian. Many people had sympathetic looks on their faces, because anyone who dared to challenge young Master Godslayer would not have a good ending. Hearing Nye Tian's words, young Master Godslayer was startled at first, as if he thought that he had heard wrongly. Then, he confirmed that Nye Tian really said, "Beat up a mad dog." His entire being was instantly enraged. Who was he? Young Master Godslayer, one of the 4 young masters of the Dongchuan divine realm. The #1 genius of the Heaven Murder sect in 1,000 years, the person who would become the sovereign of the Heaven Murder sect in the future, and the person who might even reach the pinnacle of martial arts in the Heaven realm, was actually called a mad dog. How could he endure this? Young Master Godslayer felt as if there were countless maggots crawling all over his body, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. He wished that he could tear his body apart. "Stinking brat, you called me a mad dog? Do you know who you are talking to?" Godslayer Prince roared in anger. A voice resounded in his mind. He must not kill the silver-haired warrior in front of him. It would be too easy for him. He wanted the latter to taste the pain of wanting to live, but not being able to die. "It's over." The crowd could feel young Master Godslayer's rage. 2 words appeared in their minds at the same time. Nye Tian dared to insult young Master Godslayer. This was definitely the rhythm of seeking death. Julienne was also stunned. She didn't understand why Nye Tian would do this. She might have just had a conflict with him, and even said Lin Yi's name. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Their eyes widened as if their eyeballs were going to fall out. However, Nye Tian's face was calm. His eyes were so calm that it made people's hair stand on end. This brat must be pretending to be calm. But his acting is too good. Seeing Nye Tian's expression, everyone thought. Nye Tian raised his head to look at young Master Godslayer and said, "I don't know who you are, but you bite everyone you see. If you aren't a mad dog, then what are you?" Nye Tian said to Shuiyong, "Shuiyong, watch the old man behind young Master Godslayer." "Yes." Shuiyong nodded. He knew Nye Tian's identity, so he wasn't afraid of young Master Godslayer. Being arrogant in front of the heaven world's #1 war god, young Master Godslayer had stepped on a flower. As Nye Tion's voice fell, the crowd fell into a dead silence. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was suffocating. Everyone stared at Nye Tion in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes and ears. It was like a dream. Young Master Godslayer's face stiffened. He couldn't react for a long time. After a dozen or so seconds, Prince Godslayer finally reacted. He let out a furious roar as if he had gone mad. His handsome face became twisted from extreme anger. "Brat, I'll tear you apart." In the next moment, young Master Godslayer could no longer suppress his anger. His body trembled and he slammed his palm down. Suddenly, a wild energy condensed and a golden palm appeared in the air. The space tightened and the power of heaven and earth changed. An earth-shattering power came crashing down on Nye Tion. "Mr. Nye, be careful." At this time, the first person to react was Ju Roar. She screamed and warned Nye Tion. Facing young Master Godslayer's palm, Nye Tion had a strange smile on his face. He already knew that his opponent would make a move. Even the holographic projection in his mind depicted this scene in advance. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Nye Tion. It was as if they could already see him being smashed into meat paste. Sword Heart's end of the moon break. However, Nye Tion didn't panic. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash appeared in his hand. His sword intent surged out like a tsunami. He stabbed out with his sword, and a huge sword shadow formed by his 4th-level sword intent appeared. The sword intent of the sword soul burst out. The sword light bloomed in the air, and the sword light shot out thousands of meters. What a powerful sword intent! In an instant, everyone felt a huge sword intent pressing down on them. It made them tremble from the bottom of their souls. This sword intent was too terrifying. It was unimaginable. This sword contained the power of Nye Tion's Soul Devourer's sword intent. It also contained a frightening spiritual attack. One could imagine how powerful it was. Seeing the huge sword shadow, young Master Godslayer's heart trembled. His eyes froze for a moment. The huge palm's momentum slowed down. Chapter 11:28. In the void, under Nye Tion's sword, the sword shadow had yet to arrive, but the sword intent already pervaded. The spiritual attack contained in the sword intent caught young Master Godslayer by surprise. He actually became slightly absent-minded for a moment. Right at this instant, the momentum of young Master Godslayer's palm slowed down. He wanted to be forceful again, but it was already impossible. In contrast, the power of Nye Tion's sword became stronger and stronger. The sword shadow rushed to the sky with a howl, akin to a flood dragon breaking out of the abyss. The terrifying aura shook heaven and earth. Right at this moment, that black-clothed old man beside young Master Godslayer sensed something amiss and instantly made a move. This black-clothed old man was the only 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist on young Master Godslayer's side that Nye Tion sensed. Regarding this person's attack, Nye Tion had long expected it and handed him to Shui Yong. Shui Yong also had 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength and just advanced. Even if he was not this old man's match, he could at least block this person's attack. "I've been watching you for a long time." Virtually at the instant the black-clothed old man made a move, Shui Yong roared angrily. Stomping both feet, his figure soared to the sky. A black giant axe appeared in his hand. It was precisely his primordial spirit, Black Flame Heaven-Splitting Axe. The old man's figure moved, smacking a palm down towards Nye Tion. The horrifying palm force stirred the void, like a mass of dark clouds, pressing down towards Nye Tion. Boom! And at the same time, Shui Yong wielded the axe with both hands and suddenly chopped down. A stream of black flame surged out, like a black flame sharp blade, chopping towards that mass of dark clouds. Bang! In the next instant the palm and sword collided. But that palm imprint lacked momentum, and was actually directly shattered by the sword's shadow. Arg! A shrill scream sounded out. Young Master Godslayer's figure directly flew out backward, a dripping blood-colored trail appearing in the air. Rumble! At virtually the same time, Shuiyong's black flame's sharp blade bombarded the black-clothed old man's dark clouds. A loud sound erupted in the air. The two forces actually exploded at the same time. A horrifying aura wreaked havoc in the space, emitting ear-piercing tearing sounds. Crack! 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 Terrifying power erupted, impacting on the ground. The ground was directly torn apart, several shocking cracks appearing, stirring up towering earth waves. What a terrifying power! The crowd retreated, looking at the scene in front of them in horror. The strength of 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists was indeed tyrannical. Under the collision of one move, they could actually erupt with such horrifying power. The terrifying aura in the air took a long time to dissipate. Two figures faced each other in the air. It was the black-clad old man and Shuiyong. At this time, everyone's eyes glazed over as they stared at the scene in midair. Their gazes wandered between Nie Tian and the others, and their faces were filled with disbelief. It was unimaginable that Nie Tian could injure young Master Godslayer with a single strike. Just now, everyone was certain that if Child Godslayer attacked, Nie Tian would die. But the result was the opposite of what they expected. Young Master Godslayer was not able to kill Nie Tian, but was instead injured by Nie Tian. This was too strange. Young Master Godslaying was one of the famous 4 young masters of Dongchuan. Nie Tian was just a nobody, and he was 2 levels weaker than young Master Godslaying, but he was still able to injure his opponent. How did he do it? Countless doubtful gazes stared at Nie Tian, gradually turning into apprehension. Because they discovered that Nie Tian was an unfathomably terrifying martial artist. Of course, the black-clad old man and Shuiyong's exchange similarly shocked people. No one could have expected that Shuiyong could actually forcefully clash head-on with the black-clad old man and not fall into a disadvantage in the slightest. 5th-level Heavenly Emperor's strength. The black-clad old man looked at Shuiyong, his gaze trembling violently. He did not expect that the puny little martial Liang city actually still had a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. According to what he knew, only City Lord Zhu Tianhua was 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength in martial Liang City. When did another 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist appear? Nie Tian gave Shuiyong a glance, his gaze revealing surprise. He did not expect that Shuiyong could actually fight to a draw with the black-clad old man. One had to know, Shuiyong had just broken through to 5th-level Heavenly Emperor yesterday, while that black-clad old man had at least stopped at 5th-level Heavenly Emperor for more than a decade, even as long as several decades. Looks like I still underestimated the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart Pill's power. Shuiyong, this brat spent so long to refine the Dragon Heart Pill's power. It's still considered worth it, Nie Tian said coolly in his heart. Pooh work. Right at this time, young Master God Slayer's figure trembled, spewing out a mouthful of dirty blood, and nearly fell from midair, but he was supported by 2 martial artists behind him. Young Master God Slayer's eyes were filled with a malicious divine light, staring fixedly at Nie Tian. Even his voice became hoarse as he opened his mouth solemnly. Why does your sword intent contain a mental attack? Mental attack. When the black-clad old man heard these 4 words, he was stunned, and then immediately understood something. No wonder the instant young Master God Slayer attacked previously, it was not smooth at all. There was even a momentary stagnation. It turned out that he suffered a mental attack. But how was this possible? The black-clad old man had seen before countless swordsmen, and seen before all sorts of different sword intents. But he had never seen before someone's sword intent contained a mental attack. Martial artists who knew mental attacks were 1 in a million to begin with, and being able to fuse a mental attack into sword intent was even more unheard of. It was naturally impossible for the black-clad old man to think that Nye Tian comprehended soul sword intent. Soul sword intent, this saying was too bizarre. The black-clad old man did not even dare to think about it. It was precisely because of the mental attack in Nye Tian's sword that caught young Master God Slayer off guard. Otherwise, he had absolute confidence that the palm earlier was sufficient to annihilate Nye Tian. Humph! Nye Tianling smiled coldly, his gaze sweeping across young Master God Slayer, and said coolly, "This is my secret. Would I tell you? Soul-devouring sword intent, this was the soul sword intent that Nye Tian just comprehended yesterday. Now it was already one of his killer moves. How could he possibly tell others? You. Pooh work." Young Master God Slayer felt Nye Tian's gaze like he was looking at an idiot and immediately felt tremendous humiliation. His chest felt like a 10,000 catty boulder was pressing down, making him unable to catch his breath. His body actually trembled, and he spewed out another mouthful of fresh blood. "Young Master, are you all right?" When the black-clad old man saw the situation, he hurriedly walked over. Only at this time did he discover that young Master God Slayer's injuries were even more severe than he imagined. "Get lost!" Young Master God Slayer forcefully propped up his body and roared angrily. He actually glared at that black-clad old man and berated mercilessly, "Useless trash!" The black-clad old man's old face flickered between green and red, but he did not dare to flare up. He also did not expect that a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse would appear here. Furthermore, it seemed like Nye Tian had already predicted everything. When he attacked, he already made that 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse keep an eye on him. The black-clad old man took a deep look at Nye Tian, wanting to see through the latter. But he felt that the person in front of him was like a cold pool, bottomless. The more he wanted to see through, the more he felt a bone-piercing chill. "Young Master, let's leave first." The black-clad old man's gaze flickered intensely. After saying that, he stepped onto the iron-back dragonhawk. "Stinking brat, this matter won't end like this. If this young master doesn't kill you, I won't be young Master God Slayer." Young Master God Slayer gnashed his teeth in hatred, but he did not dare to attack again. His figure moved, stepping onto the iron-back dragonhawk. Chapter 11:29. Godslayer and the others left as quickly as they came. Everyone watched the steel-back dragonhawk disappear in the sky. They were still in a daze. When the steel-back dragonhawk disappeared, everyone looked at Nye Tian with shock written all over their faces. Godslayer, one of the 4 princes of Donchuan, had been seriously injured by Nye Tian and left with his tail between his legs. This was too shocking, so shocking that it was satisfying. "Shui Yong, let's go," Nye Tian said indifferently. Then, he looked up at the sky with a strange smile on his face. Even if he helped Julian, he didn't want to have too much to do with her. Not to mention that Julian's character made Nye Tian feel disgusted. Just the fact that she was with Lin Yi was enough to make Nye Tian retreat. "Wait!" Just as Nye Tian and Shui Yong were about to leave, Julian's voice was heard again. Nye Tian's mouth twitched. He stopped but didn't turn around. Instead, he said, "Miss Ju, what else do you want?" "Thank you." Julian frowned. Her eyes flashed. She hesitated for a long time before she finally opened her mouth. Although her voice was low, it was still a thank you. "You're welcome," Nye Tianling replied coldly. The reason why he took action was not because of Julian, but because Godslayer was too arrogant. With these words, Nye Tian raised his head and looked up at the sky above him. His brows were tightly furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. "Nye Tian, you've offended Godslayer. He has the Heaven Murder sect behind him. Now that the Heaven-Earth Spirit Pool has been discovered in the Xianwang mountain range, experts from the Heaven Murder sect will definitely appear. You shouldn't go there," Julian said after a long time. Her face became cold again. She was worried about Nye Tian. "Miss Ju, instead of worrying about him, Why don't you worry about yourself? Nye Tian smiled and said playfully. I am a member of the Jew clan. As long as I reunite with my father and husband, even if I meet Child Godslayer again, he won't dare harm me. Zhu Lian's eyes flickered. When she mentioned the word husband, there was an obvious heat in her eyes that was difficult to conceal. She felt that if Nye Tian could defeat Child Godslayer, then Lin Yi would definitely be able to as well. Nye Tian smiled wryly and said, The danger I am talking about is not from young noble Godslayer, but from your husband. Stay away from him if you don't know what kind of person he is. Nye Tian. Hearing Nye Tian's words, Zhu Lian's eyes violently trembled and she said, Don't think that you can slander my husband just because you saved me. Lin Yi is the person I like. I know what kind of person he is. I don't need your cold words to judge him. The inexplicable anger showed that Zhu Lian was infatuated with Lin Yi. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed and he didn't say anything else. Whether Zhu Lian listened or not was her own business. It had nothing to do with Nye Tian. Nye Tian, since you saved me, I'll give you some words for free. Child Godslayer is not someone to be trifled with. Be careful. Zhu Lian's cold voice reminded him, but it sounded more like a threat. I'll give you some words for free as well. I'm not someone to be trifled with either. Nye Tian smiled faintly, his face calm. Oh whoa! At that moment, a sharp cry came from the horizon. The Jew clan's iron-backed dragonhawk had returned. It's the iron-backed dragonhawk. The Jew clan cried out in joy when they saw the dragonhawk return. Now that the iron-backed dragonhawk had returned, the Jew clan could ride it to the Yellow Mountain Range. Let's go! Zhu Lian's eyes twinkled when she saw the iron-backed dragonhawk return. She then said coldly. The Jew clan's members all jumped onto the dragonhawk. Mr. Nye and the others. Li Quan looked at Zhu Lian with an embarrassed expression. He was obviously hoping that Nye Tian and the others would come with him. Zhu Lian glared at Li Quan, forcing him to swallow his words. Mr. Nye, thank you for helping us, Zhu Roar said while biting her lips. Nye Tian smiled indifferently. Zhu Lian and Zhu Roar were sisters, but their personalities were very different. They were similar to Lin Yi and Lin Feng. The Jew clan's members jumped onto the iron-backed dragonhawk and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Mister, what should we do? Shui Yong looked at the place where the iron-backed dragonhawk had disappeared and frowned. He knew that in the entire Wuliang city, only the Jew clan had iron-backed dragonhawk. They had to go to another city or walk to the Yellow Mountain Range. Both options were a waste of time. Your Excellency, you've been watching for so long. Don't you want to come out? At this moment, a faint smile appeared on Nye Tian's face as he looked up into the sky, as if he was talking to the void. Shui Yong had a strange expression. He didn't know who Nye Tian was talking to. Brother, he's discovered us. In the next moment, a clear voice spread through the air. It was a 15 or 16-year-old girl. There's someone in the sky. Shui Yong shouted. He hadn't thought that there would be someone hiding in the sky. Don't be nervous, we're not enemies. Immediately after, a voice spread through the air and a spirit boat appeared. The spirit boat was shaped like an eagle. It wasn't very big. It was about 20 meters long and 4 or 5 meters wide. It looked very sturdy. There was a layer of cyan qi surrounding it. It looked very strange. What a powerful spirit boat! Nye Tian was stupefied when he saw the spirit boat. The spirit boat was a kind of aircraft. Generally, only 8th rank weapon refiners and above could build it. The spirit boat in front of him not only had the ability to fly, but it was also equipped with strong bows. Nye Tian looked at it. The internal structure of the spirit boat was very complicated. There were countless hidden weapons. This was not only a spirit boat, but also a battleship. Heaven-level spirit boat. They're from the Bai family. Nye Tian judged at first glance that they were from the Bai family. Spirit boats and battleships were divided into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. The spirit boat in front of him was the highest grade, heaven-level spirit boat. To be able to combine the spirit boat and battleship, the person who built this spirit boat was definitely a 9th-rank weapon refiner. And there was only one 9th-rank weapon refiner in the heaven realm. That was the president of the Weapon Refiners Guild, Bai Mingbo. In an instant, Nie Tian guessed that the people on the spirit boat were from the Bai family. His attention had been completely attracted by the spirit boat battleship, but at this time, his eyes trembled slightly. Only then did he notice that there were 3 young martial artists on the spirit boat, 2 men and 1 woman. They looked very similar, so they should be siblings. Among the 3, the oldest was a man in white. He looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. He had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He was very handsome and sincere. The other man was slightly younger. He was only about 20 years old. His expression was cold and his eyes were sharp. He was very vigilant. Chapter 1130. Nie Tian looked at the 3 people on the spirit boat, his gaze involuntarily trembling, and he was considerably surprised. These 3 people's strengths were all very strong. Although that young lady was only 15 or 16 years old, she had 9th-level heaven being strength. The youth slightly older than her was 2nd-level heavenly emperor strength, while the oldest youth actually had 4th-level heavenly emperor strength. Big brother, it's a little strange that this kid can discover the existence of the spirit boat, that cold-faced youth said solemnly, not avoiding Nie Tian in the slightest. The spirit boat they rode on was the White Cloud spirit boat. There was a shielding spirit formation outside the spirit boat, and it could hide in the void. Furthermore, there was even a rank 8 spirit formation protection, strengthening the spirit boat's defensive power. It was no exaggeration to say that even martial artists whose mental strength reached rank 90 and above might not be able to discover the existence of the spirit boat. Nie Tian, on the other hand, sensed the strangeness of the spiritual boat. Actually, Nie Tian had long discovered the existence of the White Cloud spirit boat. Furthermore, he knew that these 3 people saw the matter previously. Your Excellency has good means to actually be able to discover us. The oldest youth smiled faintly, appearing very refined. Nie Tian seemed to see the shadow of his 3rd disciple, Qing Ju, in this person. The 2 were both that kind of modest and gentlemanly type of people. Silver-haired brat, who are you? Why can you detect our existence? That young lady was not friendly and rebuked angrily with a pout. Don't be nervous, we're not enemies. Nie Tian smiled faintly and actually repeated what that youth said previously. The 3 people were taken aback, slightly speechless. Thinking for a moment, Nie Tian still opened his mouth to ask, I want to ask, who is Mr. Bai Mingbo to you guys? How do you know Grandpa's name? The young lady reacted very quickly. The moment she opened her mouth, she realized that she had inadvertently revealed something and hurriedly said, You don't need to know this. Nie Tian could not help laughing and said with a nod, Looks like the 3 of you are all Mr. Bai Mingbo's descendants. That tall youth nodded solemnly, seeing that Nie Tian was not some evil person. Furthermore, he saw Nie Tian and Godslayer young master fighting earlier and was very respectful of the latter's actions. Hence, he said, I'm Bai Yunfei, the person you mentioned just now is my grandfather. They are my younger brother and sister, Bai Xiaofei and Bai Xiaoye. It really is someone from the Bai family. Nie Tian smiled faintly in his heart. He had not seen Bai Mingbo for more than 100 years, and the latter's attainments in artifact forging had improved significantly. He was actually able to combine a spirit boat and a battleship together. Nie Tian reckoned that this spirit boat warship in front of him was sufficient to withstand the attacks of ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. It was very terrifying. Bai Yunfei. At this time, Shui Yong let out a strange cry and said with a surprised expression, Your young Master Yunfei. Young Master Yunfei? Nie Tian was slightly taken aback and immediately understood. For Shui Yong to call Bai Yunfei Lord Yunfei, meant that Bai Yunfei was one of the 4 lords of the Dongchuan region, just like Lord Godslayer. Nie Tian's guess was correct. Bai Yunfei was indeed one of the 4 lords. Bai Yunfei's age and strength were similar to Godslayer's, but his aura was 1,000 times better. Your Excellency, how should I address you? Bai Yunfei smiled faintly and looked at Nie Tian as he said. I'm called Nie Tian. This is my friend, Shui Yong. Nie Tian similarly smiled and said with a nod. Nie Tian. When Bai Yunfei heard this name, his brows could not help furrowing. What is it? Nie Tian's gaze turned intent slightly. It couldn't be that the other party saw through something, right? Nothing. Bai Yunfei smiled calmly and said, It's just that your name is the same as an old friend of grandfather's, so it's a little strange. Nie Tian's heart could not help easing up and he said with a smile, The Heaven Realm's divine realm has hundreds of billions of people. There are countless people with the same name and surname. It's nothing strange. Although he said so, Nie Tian knew that the person Bai Yunfei was talking about was definitely him. Because he and Bai Mingbo were pretty good friends in his previous life. Although they were not considered best friends, their friendship was not shallow either. Young Master Bai, you're going to the Xianwang mountain range, right? My friend and I are also going to the Xianwang mountain range. I wonder if you can give us a ride? Nie Tian smiled faintly. Since he knew the other party's identity, there was no need to be polite. No way. Before Nie Tian could finish his words, Bai Xiaoye pouted and said, My grandfather said that we can't let unidentified people on the spirit boat. Xiaoye. Bai Yunfei was slightly embarrassed. He glared at Bai Xiaoye and then turned to Nie Tian with a smile, saying, Brother Nie, I'm young, so please don't take offense. Since Brother Nie wants to go to the Xianwang mountain range, let's go together. Big brother. Bai Xiaoye looked unhappy, but it was not good to offend Bai Yunfei. Otherwise, the latter would use the phrase, elder brother is like a father, to teach her a lesson. Xiaoye, I believe in big brother's judgment. At this time, the quiet Bai Xiaofei pulled Bai Xiaoye and said in a low voice. Bai Xiaoye had a helpless expression. She stomped her foot in anger and didn't say anything else. Brother Nie, please. Bai Yunfei didn't know what mechanism he used, but a crack appeared in the protective array of the spirit boat. Nie Tian and Shui Yong didn't hesitate anymore. Their feet stepped forward and their bodies moved like lightning, directly entering the spirit boat. Humph! Bai Xiaoye looked at the two and snorted coldly before turning her head away. Bai Xiaofei nodded slightly as a greeting, but his eyes were extremely cautious and vigilant. Damn! This spirit boat is really good. It's like entering another space and time. The spiritual energy of the world seems to be much denser here. Shui Yong laughed carelessly. Of course. There are all kinds of spiritual arrays inside the spirit boat, and sometimes there's even a spirit void array, so it's extremely fast. There's also a spirit force array that can constantly absorb the spiritual energy of the world outside. Cultivating inside the spirit boat is much faster than cultivating outside. Nie Tian explained with a smile. I didn't expect Brother Nie to be so familiar with the spirit boat. Could it be that Brother Nie is a craftsman? Bai Yunfei asked in surprise. You can say that. Nie Tian smiled awkwardly and answered perfunctorily. In his previous life, he was at the peak of the martial Dao and alchemy Dao, but he only dabbled in refining and spiritual arrays. Compared to Bai Mingbo, who was a craftsman, the difference was like heaven and earth. At this time, the spirit boat started to move and gradually disappeared into the void. It seemed as if it had entered another space and time. Everything around it became blurry. Nie Tian knew that this was the spirit boat starting to fly. Due to the extreme speed, the space around it changed slightly, and the scenery around it became blurry. In just a moment, the spirit boat had caught up to the Zhu clan's ironback dragonhawk. It flew directly above the sky, but the Zhu clan didn't notice it at all. The speed of the spirit boat is really fast. It's far faster than the ironback dragonhawk. At this speed, we can reach the Yellow Mountain Range in half a day. Nye Tian said in his heart. Of course, Nye Tian knew that the Bai siblings were going to the Yellow Mountain Range for the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. However, he didn't ask. Otherwise, he was afraid that Bai Xiaoye would give him the cold shoulder. Along the way, the spirit boat surpassed countless ironback dragonhawk. It seemed as if the entire Eastern River Divine Realm was boiling with excitement as all of them were heading towards the Yellow Mountain Range. This is going to be troublesome. Nye Tian looked at the countless ironback dragonhawks behind him and couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 1131. The speed of the White Cloud spirit boat was extremely fast. In just half a day, Nye Tian and the others arrived above the Xianwang mountain range. Brother Nye, the mountain range below us is the Xianwang mountain range, Bai Yunfei said as he pointed at the continuous mountain range beneath his feet. His eyes revealed an unconcealable passion as he said, "Rumor has it that the vein of the earth is in the Xianwang mountain range. The energy of the world there is extremely dense, and it has already formed a spiritual pool of heaven and earth." Nye Tian smiled. The rumor is not entirely true. The spiritual pool of heaven and earth is a treasure of heaven and earth. How can it be found so easily? As he spoke, Nye Tian cast his gaze on the rolling mountain range beneath his feet. He had been to the everlasting heaven before. It was the northernmost area of the sacred realm of Dongchuan. It could be said to be a barren land without any signs of life. However, the Xianwang mountain range below him was very unique. It was verdant and lush with giant trees and lush flowers. It was like an oasis in the middle of a desert. It seems that there really is an energy vein here. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. To be able to form an oasis in a barren land, it was very likely that there was a huge energy vein in the Xianwang mountain range. An energy vein was not rare. There might be an energy vein in the Xianwang mountain range, but there might not be a spiritual pool of heaven and earth. The space in the sacred realm of Heaven Realm was not stable enough to nurture a spiritual pool of heaven and earth. Big brother, there are so many people over there. At this time, Bai Xiaoye walked over and looked at an empty space in the mountain range. She was pleasantly surprised and looked very excited. Nye Tian looked at Bai Xiaoye and smiled. He guessed that Bai Mingbo also knew that there would not be a spiritual pool of Heaven Realm in the sacred realm. The reason why he let the Bai siblings come out was to let them gain some experience. Bai Yunfei was a steady person, while Bai Xiaofei was very calm. In addition, they had a spirit boat so they could basically deal with all kinds of emergencies. So many people gathered there. Did they already find the energy vein? Bai Yunfei was slightly stunned, but his eyes revealed a hint of joy. At this time, Nye Tian's spiritual sense swept over. Even through the spirit boat's spirit shielding array, he could still clearly see the situation below. In the center of everyone's encirclement, there was a mass of chaotic qi floating in the air. It was like a dense cloud vortex, only several meters wide. It constantly spun, and the surrounding space was affected. It was pulled taut, and the power of heaven and earth was changed. Gate of the Void. The moment he saw this chaotic vortex, Nye Tian couldn't help but cry out in alarm. His entire face suddenly changed, and his expression became slightly sluggish. He never expected that a door to the void would appear here. "Brother Nye, are you all right?" Standing by Nye Tian's side, Bai Yunfei was the first to sense his abnormality, and asked with a frown, "Sir, what's wrong?" Shui Yong also saw that Nye Tian's expression was not right and could not help but become nervous. The expression on Nye Tian's face froze for several seconds before slowly relaxing. His eyes were still unable to hide the shock in them. "I didn't think that a gate of the void would appear here," he murmured. "Gate of the void?" Bai Yunfei and the others were startled. They had no idea what Nye Tian was talking about. That mass of chaotic vortex is the gate of the void, the space-time gate that escapes from a high-grade space-time barrier. Nie Tian calmed down a bit and pointed at the chaotic vortex. Bai Yunfei and the others stared at each other, unable to see what Nie Tian was talking about. It was only then that Nie Tian suddenly realized that Bai Yunfei and the others couldn't see something that was so far away, especially with the spirit shielding array separating them. Bai Yunfei, let's go down first. Suppressing his excitement, Nie Tian gestured for Bai Yunfei to open the boat. Okay. Bai Yunfei didn't know what Nie Tian's reaction was, but he nodded anyway. The boat came to life and the array opened up to reveal several people. Everyone down below was so focused that they didn't notice Nie Tian and the others. Landing on a large boulder, they could see the chaotic vortex in the distance. It was the gate of the void that Nie Tian was talking about. What a powerful space-time aura! Bai Yunfei stared at the gate of the void. Feeling the terrifying space-time aura, Bai Yunfei couldn't help but be shocked. He immediately realized that the space-time within a few thousand meters of him was being affected by the gate of the void. It was distorting and even compressing. It really is the gate of the void. Nie Tian's lips curled into a smile, his eyes flashing with excitement. The others also felt the change in space-time and were shocked. Brother Nie, what is this gate of the void? Bai Yunfei asked after a long time had passed. Nie Tian seemed to know a lot about the gate of the void. The gate of the void is a space-time gate that comes out from a high-level space-time barrier. Nie Tian repeated. Seeing the confused look on Bai Yunfei's face, he smiled and said, "You can think of the gate of the void as an independent compressed space. It is a highly distorted space-time barrier that can lead to another space-time." In fact, this was Nie Tian's first time seeing the gate of the void. He had only read about it in ancient books before. It was a very special independent space that was similar to the space the Sword Elder had talked about. It could be understood as a space-time barrier that came out from a different space. Through this space-time barrier, one could go to another space. Brother Nie, are you saying that if we go through the Nether Gate, we'll be able to go to another space-time? Bai Yunfei's comprehension ability was quite good, so he couldn't help but gulp. Yes. Nie Tian smiled and nodded. The Gate of the Void is a moving space-time formation. It is a space-time gate that leads to another space. Rumor has it that through the Gate of the Void, one can go to a higher world outside of the divine realm of the Heaven Realm. A higher world? Bai Yunfei was stunned. Could it be the legendary realm of gods? Maybe. Nie Tian nodded slightly with a strange smile on his face. Nie Tian did not know if the Gate of the Void could lead to the legendary realm of gods, but he knew that the appearance of the Gate of the Void meant that the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range might really have a World Essence Pond. It was impossible for the World Essence Pond to appear in the divine realm of the Heaven Realm because the spacetime here was not stable enough. But if there was a special spacetime in the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range that was stable enough, then it could give birth to a World Essence Pond. Nie Tian guessed that there was a high possibility that such a special spacetime existed in the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range, and the Gate of the Void in front of him came from that special spacetime. After understanding this, the smile on Nie Tian's face became slightly stiff. If he stepped into the Gate of the Void, then wouldn't he directly enter that special spacetime and then find the World Essence Pond? Chapter 1132. Thinking about the possibility that the Gate to the Void could lead to the Heaven and Earth Pool, Nie Tian's eyes revealed a great desire. Although he didn't come to the Xianwang mountain range for the Heaven and Earth Pool, it would still be a great surprise if he could find it. Nie Tian's eyes widened. Without hesitation, he walked towards the Gate to the Void to see what it was. The closer he got to the Gate to the Void, the more he felt the space-time around him distort. An enormous pressure came from all directions, threatening to tear his body apart. Because of this pressure, everyone else stood a few hundred meters away from the Gate to the Void. Nie Tian, are you crazy? Just as Nie Tian was about 100 meters away from the Gate to the Void, the Sword Elder's voice echoed in his mind. Nie Tian was taken aback and came to a stop. This is a gate of time. Almost at the same time, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. Then, a figure flashed past Nye Tian and rushed towards the gate to the void. The figure's figure was extremely fast. He must have recognized that the gate to the void was a gate of time and was also thinking about the heaven and earth pool. Just as the figure was about 50 meters away from the gate to the void, the space suddenly trembled. Then, like an invisible hand, a strange force appeared and wrapped around the figure. Ah! In the next moment, a heart-wrenching scream rang out. Under the control of the space-time power, the person's body was unable to resist at all. The terrifying power actually twisted his body into pieces, turning him into a ball of bloody light that dissipated in the air. SSS-. This sudden scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. Dumbfounded, they stared at the gate to the void in the air, unable to speak for a long time. Nye Tian's expression froze as well. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Almost subconsciously, he retreated to keep his distance from the gate to the void. Frightened, Nye Tian retreated back to the giant boulder. Feeling the pressure on his body lessen, his stiff expression improve. "Brother Nye, are you all right?" Bai Yunfei and the others were still in shock and asked in astonishment. Nye Tian shook his head, finally calming down a lot. The scene just now was too horrifying. Thinking back to it now, it still made one's heart palpitate. Nye Tian discerned that that person was a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. After approaching the gate of the void, he actually did not have the strength to resist at all and was directly torn to shreds by the space-time's strange power. Fortunately, the Sword Elder reminded him in time. Otherwise, Nye Tian's fate would not be any better. "Sword Elder, what's going on?" asked Nye Tian. Became cold. He stared at the door of the void with fear in his eyes. The gate of the void was too terrifying to actually instantly tear apart a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. "Brat, you're still too young." Sword Elder shook his head. Luckily, he sensed that the outside world's space-time aura changed. Only then did he notice what Nye Tian was doing. Otherwise, the consequences would be too ghastly to imagine. Sword Elder let out a sigh. Looking at the gate of the void, he explained, "The gate of the void is a space-time gate formed by highly distorted and compressed space-time. The space-time pressure inside is virtually not inferior to the spatial storm inside a spatial rift. Aren't you courting death by wanting to enter the gate of the void?" "So that's how it is." Nye Tian had a look of astonishment. He did not expect that the interior of the gate of the void actually contained such a horrifying power, comparable to a spatial storm. No wonder even a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist was instantly shredded to pieces. One had to know how horrifying was the power of a spatial storm. It was sufficient to instantly shred a 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. Nye Tian let out a long breath of turbid air, his complexion improving slightly. This time, he was really a little too impulsive. Fortunately, Sword Elder reminded him in time. "However, your guess should be right." At this time, Sword Elder's voice sounded out once more, saying, "The alternate space that this gate of the void leads to is extremely likely inside the Xianhuang mountain range. Furthermore, there might be a heaven and earth spirit pool existing there." "There's really a heaven and earth spirit pool?" Nye Tian's gaze quivered slightly, unable to conceal the scorching heat in his heart. Sword Elder nodded his head solemnly and said, "I also didn't expect that a tiny little Xianhuang mountain range actually hid a stretch of alternate space. But this alternate space shouldn't be big. It's extremely likely that it was condensed and formed from an ancient essence energy vein. The Xianhuang mountain range is located in a barren land like everlasting, but it can become an independent oasis. It should be affected by the heaven and earth spiritual energy dispersing out of the alternate space." Nye Tian nodded slightly, deeply feeling that way too. The heaven and earth spiritual energy dispersing out of the alternate space could even turn the Xianhuang mountain range into an oasis. The richness of the heaven and earth spiritual energy inside could be imagined. Nie Tian was basically certain that a heaven and earth spirit pool definitely existed inside this alternate space. Sword Elder, this gate of the void's space-time pressure is so great. Doesn't that mean that there's no way to enter that alternate space at all? Nie Tian looked at the gate of the void, his face revealing worry. Fifth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would be directly ground to shreds when they approached within 50 meters of the Sumeru Gate. Most likely, even ninth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it hard to get within 10 meters of the Gate of the Void too, let alone talk about entering the Gate of the Void. Weakening the Gate of the Void's space-time pressure, only martial artists who possess space-time attribute essence energy can accomplish it. If you can find a space-time spirit array master, you can weaken the Gate of the Void's space-time pressure. Perhaps you can enter the Gate of the Void. Talking up to here, Sword Elder laughed strangely and said, "But that will destroy the martial Dao foundation of the space-time spirit array master. Who is willing to do that?" This. Nie Tian's face fell. He did not expect that the Gate of the Void was so tyrannical. Only a space-time spirit array master could weaken the space-time pressure by using their martial Dao foundation as the price. Space-time spirit array masters were extremely rare to begin with. Even if one could find one, who would be willing to damage their martial Dao foundation? Sigh. Looks like there's no hope for the heaven and earth spirit pool. Nie Tian laughed bitterly. He naturally wanted to take a look at the legendary heaven and earth spirit pool, but he really had no way. That might not be the case. But right at this time, Sword Elder laughed and said, "The Gate of the Void appearing here will also be affected by the current spacetime. The spacetime pressure will also slowly weaken on its own. When it weakens to a certain extent, you can enter the Gate of the Void." Weaken on its own? Nie Tian was stunned. His originally disappointed eyes immediately flickered again as he asked, "How long does that take? If it's quick, several decades, if it's slow, several centuries." But following that, Sword Elder's answer directly made Nie Tian's heart that had just ignited hope sink again. Several decades? Several centuries? Nie Tian had a speechless look. Sword Elder's answer simply made him have the urge to beat someone up. He came to the Xianhuang mountain range for the 3 lives grass. At most, he would return in a few months. How could he have the time to wait for several decades or even several centuries? Bai Yunfei and the others saw Nie Tian's expression change again and again. They did not know what the latter was thinking, so they could only helplessly look at him. After experiencing the tragic scene just now, the crowd clearly felt panic. They all subconsciously moved away from the Gate of the Void. It really is the Gate of the Void. At this moment, an excited voice suddenly rang out. Then, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. Chapter 1133. As the crowd slowly moved away from the Gate of the Void, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. He looked very young, only in his early 20s. However, his aura was very powerful, and he gave off a very oppressive feeling. Who is this person? The crowd was stunned when they saw the figure that suddenly appeared. When Nie Tian saw the person's face clearly, his face couldn't help but sink because it was none other than Lin Yi. Lin Yi could be said to be an old rival of Nie Tian. Nie Tian didn't expect him to appear at this time. Nie Tian already knew that Lin Yi had arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain range ahead of him, but the latter seemed to have arrived later than him. Perhaps the speed of the spirit boat was too fast, but Nie Tian arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain range first. Third-level Heavenly Emperor. Nie Tian's divine sense probed over, his gaze trembling once more. Lin Yi's strength increased even faster than he expected, already reaching third-level Heavenly Emperor cultivation. Nie Tian was currently peak second-level Heavenly Emperor, and was still a bit away from being able to advance to third-level Heavenly Emperor. But he was not afraid of Lin Yi. Because his sword Dao realm increased, coupled with condensing the soul-devouring sword intent, it let him be able to fight any third-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. Lin Yi also knows about the Gate of the Void. At this time, Nie Tian noticed that Lin Yi's expression was very strange. He seemed to be very interested in the Gate of Nothingness. Nie Tian immediately guessed that Lin Yi's ancient blood demon must have recognized the Gate to the Void. At this time, all of Lin Yi's attention was on the Gate of the Void. Obviously, he didn't notice the existence of Nie Tian. The Gate of the Void, it seems like the heaven and earth spirit pond really exists. Lin Yi's mouth curved into a strange smile as he murmured. He and Nie Tian had the same thought. However, immediately after, Lin Yi's face became gloomy, as if he knew that the Gate of the Void was not to be trifled with and that he couldn't enter. Nie Tian saw the change in Lin Yi's expression and immediately guessed what the latter was thinking. He smiled faintly in his heart and said, Lin Yi, you are the reincarnation of an ancient blood demon king, and you have a blood demon with the strength of a heavenly emperor. Maybe you have a way to resist the pressure of the Gate to the Void. Nie Tian had already seen Lin Yi's strength. Maybe he had some strange method to enter the Gate of Nothingness. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Lin Yi. It was a middle-aged man with a resolute face. He looked very dignified. Lord Zhu Tianhua. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, someone recognized him and cried out in alarm. Absolute Heavenly Flower. Hearing this name, Nie Tian felt quite startled and immediately remembered that Zhu Lian's father was called Zhu Tianhua. Moreover, this person called Lin Yi, which was evidently a form of address for a junior. As such, he was definitely the city lord of Liangwu City. Father-in-law. Lin Yi nodded slightly, showing a rare look of respect. What is this? What a powerful space-time aura. Zhu Tianhua frowned slightly as he spoke in a deep voice. Lin Yi did not say anything. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Zhu Tianhua. Zhu Tianhua's expression flickered. He should already know that this was the Void Gate and what was hidden behind it. After a short while, Zhu Tianhua's eyes flickered with an unconcealable heat. He swept his gaze over the crowd below and became vigilant. Father-in-law, let's go. Lin Yi thought for a second and smiled in a strange way. Then, he got ready to leave. Zhu Tianhua nodded and prepared to leave. Just at this moment, Lin Yi suddenly frowned. A cold light flashed across his eyes as he locked onto Nie Tian. The corner of his mouth twitched as he spat out two words, Nie Tian. Lin Yi, long time no see. Nie Tian smiled. He knew that Lin Yi hadn't noticed him. It had been the ancient blood beast. As expected, you came to the godly area. It seems like you received my message, said Lin Yi, smiling evilly and staring at Nie Tian. He didn't even try to hide his killing intent. He had asked Lin Feng to tell Nie Tian that he would be waiting for Nie Tian in the godly area. But Nie Tian hadn't come to the godly area for Lin Yi. Even without Lin Yi, Nie Tian would have come anyway. Lin Yi, you think too highly of yourself. Do you really think I came to the god domain just for you? Nie Tian smiled faintly and replied coldly. Facing Nie Tian's provocation, Lin Yi wasn't angry at all. Instead, he laughed. Then, his face darkened and he said, Nie Tian, I don't care why you're here, but I'm sure that I'll kill you. Is that so? Nie Tian shook his head and smiled. He didn't deny it. He had long since grown tired of hearing such threats. He no longer felt anything. Is that the enemy you mentioned? Zhu Tianhua looked coldly at Nie Tian, his eyes flickering with intense hostility. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Lin Yi, who was his son-in-law. Therefore, Lin Yi's enemy was his enemy. Indeed. Lin Yi nodded and said, Nie Tian, I want to see how strong you are now. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end. said Nye Tian, smiling indifferently. How could he retreat? Little boy, if you want to fight, you'll have to kill me first. At this time, an angry voice rang out and a wild aura burst forth. A figure appeared in front of Nye Tian, blocking his way. He remembered Long Aotian's words. He had to protect Nye Tian. Shui Yong. When Zhu Tianhua saw Shui Yong, he couldn't help but be surprised. Then, he angrily shouted, "Back off." He thought that Shui Yong was still a member of the Zhu clan, so he acted like he was a servant. "Leader Zhu, I won't step back," said Shui Yong decisively. Zhu Tianhua's expression darkened. He hadn't expected that Shui Yong would actually dare to refute him. After that, he was instantly enraged. His aura surged and he directly slammed out with his palm. An enormous palm energy bloomed in the air, causing the distorted space around the great void gate to tighten. "Leader Zhu, since you want to fight, Shui Yong will accompany you." Shui Yong frowned. The black flame heaven-splitting axe appeared in his hand. He stomped on the ground and soared into the sky, chopping down at Zhu Tianhua. Boom! Suddenly, a wave of black flames appeared and condensed into a terrifying black flame blade in the air. Like a flood dragon, it whistled out, and the distorted space around it was affected by a huge force, parting to the sides like a tide. Boom! In the next moment, the horrifying palm print and the black flame blade collided. Terrifying waves of air surged out, erupting with astonishing power and exploding in the distorted space. Zhu Tianhua, who was in the air, was hit by the wave of air. He couldn't help but tremble. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. Almost at the same time, Shui Yong's figure suddenly stopped. He was directly pressed down like a boulder falling to the ground. "Shui Yong!" shouted Nye Tian when he saw this scene. He rushed to Shui Yong's side. Chapter 1134. After confirming that Shui Yong was fine, Nye Tian felt more at ease. Only now did he realize that Shui Yong's strength was much stronger than he had expected. Zhu Tianhua's strength was much stronger than the black-robed elder beside the Godslayer young master. It was not easy for Shui Yong to take one attack from him. Nye Tian discovered that Zhu Tianhua's strength was already peak 5th level Heavenly Emperor and might break through to 6th level Heavenly Emperor at any time. At this moment, the surrounding spectators were stunned as well, and they looked at Shui Yong with expressions of disbelief. Obviously, they did not expect that Shui Yong would actually be able to receive a strike from Zhu Tianhua. Zhu Tianhua was the city lord of Martial Beaconbeam City. He was quite famous in the Eastern River Deity region and could be considered an expert who had been famous for a long time. As for Shui Yong, he was a completely unknown person. The difference in status between the two was too great. Shui Yong being able to exchange blows with Zhu Tianhua was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhu Tianhua's figure stood high up in the sky, and his gaze could not help sinking. Then, he laughed coldly and said coldly, "Shui Yong, so you're already a 5th level Heavenly Emperor. No wonder you dare to be arrogant to this city lord. I never thought that a dog that I had raised for so many years would bite its owner in the end." Shui Yong's face sank when he heard Zhu Tianhua's words. He clenched his fists and said, "City Lord Zhu, I, Shui Yong, am only a mercenary of the Zhu family, not a dog of the Zhu family." Nye Tian suddenly raised his head and locked his gaze on Zhu Tianhua. He said in a cold voice, "Like daughter, like father. Zhu Lian likes to call people dogs, and you also like to call people dogs. I wonder what kind of people from your Zhu clan are? Are they worse than pigs and dogs?" "You!" Zhu Tianhua's face darkened. There was a ball of anger in his chest that he couldn't swallow or spit out. "Father-in-law, don't lower yourself to his level. He's just an ant. Let him live a few more days." Just as Zhu Tianhua was about to fly into a rage, Lin Yi suddenly stepped forward. He cast a cold glance at Nye Tian, seemingly plotting something. Nye Tian was also stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to give up just like that. Zhu Tianhua glanced at Lin Yi and actually restrained his anger. He looked cold at Nie Tian and said, "Smelly brat, I will spare you this time." After saying that, Zhu Tianhua and Lin Yi actually turned around and left. Nie Tian looked at their backs and couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know why Lin Yi suddenly left. This wasn't in line with his style. "Nie Tian, let's meet again in 3 days." Just as Nie Tian was puzzled, Lin Yi's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. After this voice, Lin Yi's aura completely disappeared. "What do you mean?" Nie Tian laughed, but he was getting more and more confused. Lin Yi suddenly left, which made him feel very strange, and then he said, "See you in 3 days," which was even more puzzling. Let him be. Either way, I can't kill him right now, Nie Tian said in his heart and no longer thought about it. Lin Yi was the reincarnation of an ancient blood demon king. Terrifying blood demon power was hidden in his body. Even if Nie Tian had the ability to kill him, he did not dare to kill either. It was indeed a headache. The crowd looked at Nie Tian and Shui Yong dumbfoundedly, not knowing what grudges the two had with Zhu Tianhua and Lin Yi. "Brother Nie, are you guys alright?" At this time, Bai Yunfei walked over, his expression somewhat awkward. Because he did not step forward just now, he was afraid that Nie Tian would be displeased because of it. "We're fine." Nie Tian smiled faintly and did not take it to heart. Bai Yunfei's identity was not simple. Furthermore, he just got to know them. Not taking action was also excusable. That guy called Lin Yi is very strong. There seems to be a terrifying power hidden in his body. Bai Xiaofei walked over and said with a cold look. Lin Yi was only around 20 years old and actually had 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor strength. This made Bai Xiaofei very surprised. Nie Tian glanced at Bai Xiaofei. He did not expect that the latter's perception ability was still pretty good, seemingly seeing through the blood demon power on Lin Yi's body. When Bai Yunfei heard Bai Xiaofei's words, his gaze could not help trembling. He knew that this younger brother of his had extremely high standards, even looking down on the 4 great young masters. But he made such an evaluation of Lin Yi. This showed that Lin Yi's strength was indeed strange. "Brother Nie, what plans do you guys have next?" Bai Yunfei looked at Nie Tian and asked. But Nie Tian looked at the gate of the void. His eyes could not help having some regret as he said, "I still have some things. I'm preparing to find something in the Xianwang mountain range. We'll take our leave here." Bai Yunfei nodded with a smile and said, "Farewell here. See you again." Following that, the Bai family's 3 siblings directly stepped onto the spirit boat and disappeared into the void. Nie Tian took one last look at the gate of the void, no longer reluctant to stay, and then left. Although he knew that the passage to the spiritual pool of heaven and earth was behind the gate of the void, he could not approach the gate of the void, so he could only look at it and sigh. The others also slowly left, leaving only the gate of the void in the air, which was still constantly rotating. "Mister, are we going to look for the vitality vein next?" Shui Yong, who had already returned to normal, followed behind Nie Tian and asked with a smile. "Stinking brat, we did not come to the Xianwang mountain range to look for the vitality vein." Nie Tian could not help but smile as he looked at the depths of the Xianwang mountain range with a strange expression. This trip to the Xianwang mountain range was to find the 10,000-year-old 3 lives grass, which was the most important thing for Nie Tian. However, the Xianwang mountain range was very vast, spanning hundreds of kilometers, and there were various cliffs and caves. It was not easy to find the 3 lives grass in such a situation. In the next few days, Nie Tian and Shui Yong kept searching in the Xianwang mountain range, especially in places with harsh environments such as valleys and cliffs. Unfortunately, after a few days the two of them found nothing. They did not even find an ordinary 3 lives grass. Could it be that the information Lan Ting gave me was wrong? Nie Tian could not help but frown as he walked in a canyon. The news that the 100-year-old 3 lives grass was in the Xianwang mountain range came from Lan Ting, so he should not have lied to Nie Tian. At this time, Nie Tian suddenly thought of something and asked Shui Yong, how many days have we been searching? 3 days. Shui Yong hesitated for a moment. He had been too engrossed in the search and had forgotten the time. 3 days. Nie Tian pondered, and the corners of his mouth could not help but rise as he muttered, Lin Yi told me to see him in 3 days. Will he appear at the gate of the void again? Let's go and have a look. With this thought, Nie Tian decided to go to the gate of the void first. Anyway, there was no progress in finding the 3 lives grasped. Maybe Lin Yi had a way to enter the gate of the void. Although Nie Tian faintly felt that there was a conspiracy, he still decided to go and have a look. After making this decision, Nie Tian did not delay any longer. He directly left the canyon and went to the gate of the void. Just as Nie Tian and Shui Yong left the canyon, they saw 2 giant iron-backed dragonhawks in the sky, confronting each other. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Although the 2 iron-backed dragonhawks were thousands of meters away from him, he could still see the people on them clearly. He could not help but laugh. It's them. Nie Tian knew the 2 iron-backed dragonhawks. One was Child Godslayer and the other was Julian. Chapter 11:35. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Nie Tian saw the 2 steel-backed dragon eagles in the sky and couldn't help but twitch his lips. Young Master Godslayer and Julian had bumped into each other. But this time, Julian had Lin Yi and Zhu Tianhua by her side. Nie Tian's eyes sparkled. He was ready to watch a good show. Child Godslayer was an extremely arrogant person, and Lin Yi was not a persimmon that anyone could bully. When the 2 of them met, it would definitely be a good show. At that moment, a few more steel-backed dragon eagles appeared in the distance. They were all people who had arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range. When they saw young Master Godslayer's group, they stopped and watched from afar. With these words, Nie Tian looked up and found the bi-sibling spiritual starship. However, he didn't make a sound, as if he didn't want to alert them. Miss Ju. Up in the sky, young Master Godslayer's voice was cold. His voice was hoarse and filled with anger. His cold eyes were locked on Julian. Julian knew how overbearing young Master Godslayer was. She took a step back in fear. Seeing this, Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, he was using the Eye of Blood Demon to control the iron-backed dragonhawk under his feet to prevent it from being scared away by the other dragonhawk. Julian, who is this? Lin Yi glanced at young Master Godslayer and asked cold. Extreme panic could be seen on Julian's delicate face. She transmitted her voice to Lin Yi and told him what had happened. What an arrogant man! After hearing Julian's words, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly darkened. His eyes revealed contempt and killing intent at the same time. This man is very strong. He has the Heaven Murder sect behind him. Do not offend him. Zhu Tianhua sensed Lin Yi's killing intent. The Heaven Murder sect? Lin Yi smiled. The disdain in his eyes intensified. Julian, this is not over yet. This young master's words from before are still valid. Cripple your own Yuan spirit Yuan meridian, then kowtow and apologize, and this young master will spare your life. If you don't, then I'll kill everyone in the Zhu clan. Young Master Godslayer said coldly. His eyes were cold and filled with malice. Hiss! The crowd sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard the cold voice. He had long heard that the god-slaying young master was arrogant and domineering, but he did not expect it to be to this extent. In front of City Lord Liangwu, he ordered his daughter to destroy her Yuan spirit Yuan meridian and kowtow to apologize. I wonder how Liangwu City's young lady managed to offend Prince Godslayer. City Lord Liangwu is going to suffer, the spectators thought to themselves. They looked at Prince Godslayer with dread. Child Godslayer, you've crossed the line. Naturally, Zhu Tianhua couldn't pretend to be mute at this time. He took a step forward and said in a heavy tone, This city lord already knows about the matter between you and Julien. It's just a misunderstanding. There's no need to take someone's life. Shut up. As soon as Zhu Tianhua's voice fell, Godslayer young master roared in anger. He pointed at Zhu Tianhua and shouted, Zhu Tianhua, this young master knows that you're the city lord of Marshal Liang, but in my eyes you're nothing but an ant. If you dare to interfere, this young master will have the Heaven Murder sect destroy your city. Insolence. Prince Godslayer's insolence made people's hair stand on end. Killing someone else's daughter and not letting others interfere? How overbearing! Zhu Tianhua's face turned red and green. His body trembled slightly. He didn't expect that Prince Godslayer wouldn't even put him, the city lord, in his eyes. Nie Tian watched from the ground and couldn't help but smile. He thought to himself, Zhu Tianhua, you and your daughter like to call others dogs. But in front of Prince Godslayer, you're worse than a dog. Sir, this Prince Godslayer is too arrogant. I think he's the most arrogant one. Shui Yong stared at Prince Godslayer in anger. After all, he had received the Zhu clan's favor. He's the most arrogant one? Bullshit. Nie Tian glanced at Prince Godslayer with disdain. Prince Godslayer was indeed arrogant, but his arrogance and Long Outian's were two different things. The reason why Long Outian was called the #1 madman was because he dared to be insolent to those who were stronger than him. The 9 monarchs of the heaven realm, the pinnacle of the way of the sword, everything that he could not stand were all bullshit. However, Prince Godslayer only dared to be arrogant in front of the weak. If he met a true expert, would he still dare to be so arrogant? Calling Prince Godslayer the most arrogant one was too much of an insult. Father. At this time, Julien saw that Zhu Tianhua's expression wasn't right. He seemed to be afraid. Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but shout, afraid that he would really give up on her. Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but tremble and take a step back. His eyes flickered with hesitation. Ah! Prince Godslayer saw Zhu Tianhua's reaction and laughed even more arrogantly. He shouted, the dignified city lord Liang Wu is actually a coward who is afraid of death. In order to live, you don't even want your daughter? Prince Godslayer, you. Zhu Tianhua's old face was so gloomy that it seemed as if blood would drip out of it. He didn't expect Zhu Tianhua to say it out loud. In this case, he really had no way out. If he really gave up on Julien, what would the people here think of him? Prince Godslayer is so vicious. Everyone could see what was going on. Their eyes trembled violently. Prince Godslayer first scared Zhu Tianhua away, then he coldly ridiculed Zhu Tianhua, putting him in a dilemma. He was simply forcing Zhu Tianhua to the road of death. Prince Godslayer stared at Zhu clan's father and daughter cold. He wanted to completely destroy Zhu clan. Only then would he be able to dispel the hatred in his heart. Of course, he hadn't found Nie Tian yet. If he found Nie Tian, he would definitely use a cruel method to kill him. Prince Godslayer, not only are you arrogant, but you're also vicious. Nie Tian looked at Prince Godslayer and smiled faintly. He had long discovered that there were 2 gray-robed old men behind Prince Godslayer. They were both 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. This was Prince Godslayer's capital to be arrogant. If not for these 2 people, he might not dare to be arrogant in front of Zhu Tianhua. Enough! Right at this time, an ice-cold voice suddenly sounded out. Lin Yi took a step forward, a pair of cold eyes staring at Prince Godslayer. The corners of his mouth suddenly twitched, and he squeezed out a word from his throat, scram. His voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder landing beside everyone's ears, directly stunning everyone. Everyone's gazes turned to Lin Yi, their eyes revealing incredulous surprise, seemingly suspecting that their ears heard wrongly. No one thought that a person who was basically ignored by Prince Godslayer would suddenly come forward to speak. Furthermore, he was so insolent, directly telling Prince Godslayer to scram. Prince Godslayer was also instantly stunned, and did not react for a long time, completely not daring to believe his own ears. After a full few seconds, Prince Godslayer seemed to have woken up from a dream. The fury in his heart could no longer be contained. It flared up, and even his face became savage as he directly roared, "You're courting death!" Chapter 1136. Nye Tion's eyes trembled when he saw the scene in the sky. His eyes were burning with anticipation. He really wanted to know who was stronger, Godslayer or Lin Yi. Both Godslayer and Lin Yi had once lost to Nye Tion. However, Nye Tion and Lin Yi's battle was a long time ago, and he and Godslayer had only exchanged one move. If Nye Tion had to judge which of the two was stronger, it would be hard to say. Fool! Facing Prince Godslayer's furious attack, Lin Yi showed no fear at all. Instead, he sneered and soared into the sky. A blood-red ocean appeared behind him, emitting a terrifying bloodthirsty aura. Almost at the same time, Lin Yi's eyes turned blood-red. A blood-red vortex was released from his palm. It spun crazily and surged with a terrifying bloody aura. What a terrifying aura! The crowd's eyes trembled when they felt the bloody aura. The steel-backed dragon eagles around them involuntarily retreated, as if they felt a great threat. Demonic blood lotus. Nye Tion's eyes darkened when he saw the blood-red vortex. It was the demonic blood lotus that Lin Yi had fused with Xian Shao and Yu Jin's bloodline power. Nye Tion had fought with Lin Yi before, so he knew how powerful the demonic blood lotus was. It was comparable to a top-notch bloodline power. Prince Godslayer felt a suffocating pressure when he saw the blood demon lotus. His brows couldn't help but twitch as a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. Die! At that moment, Lin Yi screamed and thrust his palm. The demonic blood lotus was like a sword released from a bow, slamming into the golden palm in the sky. You dare to be so arrogant before me with only this much power? Godslayer regained his composure and sneered. He seemed very confident. Boom! However, just as the demonic blood lotus was about to collide with the golden palm, it suddenly blossomed like a lotus in full bloom. Blood-colored petals bloomed, and the demonic blood lotus expanded thousands of times in an instant, turning into a blood-colored mountain. Terrifying bloodline power erupted, shooting out blood-colored blades that filled the sky. Crack, 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 bang! The power of the demonic blood lotus bombarded the golden palm. Countless tearing sounds rang out, followed by a muffled sound, and the golden palm collapsed. Young master, be careful! At this moment, the two gray-robed old men behind Godslayer sensed that something was wrong. They let out a cry and attacked at the same time. Two mountainous fists containing the power of law appeared and attacked the demonic blood lotus. The two of them were fifth-level heavenly emperors. When they attacked at the same time, the power was earth-shattering. The surrounding space suddenly trembled. Under the impact of the two mighty forces, the entire sky seemed like it was about to collapse. Nye Tion's gaze trembled slightly when he saw this. These two were very strong. Either of them was not weaker than Zhu Tianhua. No wonder Godslayer dared to be so arrogant. Lin Yi is in danger. Nye Tion's heart trembled. He was ready to attack at any time. He obviously did not want to save Lin Yi, but he had to. Because no one else knew Lin Yi's true identity, not even Lin Yi himself. If Lin Yi's physical body was destroyed by these two, the ancient blood demon power in his body would be released. That would be unimaginable power. At that time, everyone present would die. Boom! Boom! In the sky, two fists slammed into the blood demon lotus, causing a terrifying explosion. The blood demon lotus could no longer withstand the impact of the two fists. Its blood-colored petals withered and fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Seeing this scene, Nye Tion's gaze trembled violently. He no longer hesitated. His figure soared into the sky, and meteor wings appeared behind him. His speed was extremely fast, like the wind and lightning. The moment the demonic blood lotus collapsed, Lin Yi did not show panic on his face. Instead, he sneered, "Blood Demon Realm, open!" Everyone saw the blood-colored sea behind Lin Yi surging with evil black runes, instantly condensing into a huge skull. In the next instant, the black runes became extremely violent. Endless dark energy was released, spreading 10,000 meters away. A terrifying blood demon realm was formed, enveloping Godslayer and the two gray-robed old men. Huh! When Nye Tian saw this scene, his eyes narrowed. His figure froze in midair. He felt a huge pressure descend, forcing him to retreat. Blood Demon Realm. Nye Tian's figure hurriedly retreated several thousand meters. He instantly understood that Lin Yi had long expected that the two gray-robed old men would make a move, so he prepared to open the Blood Demon Realm in advance. Lin Yi, you are indeed cunning. Nye Tian smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had made a move unnecessarily. What a terrifying barrier power! At this time, the crowd saw that the space 10,000 meters in midair was enveloped by the blood-colored barrier. At the same time, they felt a terrifying pressure. They could not help but retreat again, fear in their eyes. At this time, the crowd finally understood why Lin Yi dared to challenge Godslayer. It turned out that he had such a strange strength. Your strength is actually. On the other side, Zhu Tianhua was completely stunned when he saw this scene. He did not expect Lin Yi's strength to be so terrifying. The blood demon realm in front of him made him tremble in fear. Lin Yi. Zhu Lian's beautiful eyes flickered with surprise. Nye Tian watched from the side and smiled bitterly. He thought to himself, this time, Godslayer young master is dead for sure. Lin Yi's blood demon realm was very terrifying. It could suppress a martial artist's Yuan Meridian. Even a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse would at most have the strength of a 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor in the blood demon realm. Nye Tian had once fallen into the blood demon realm. If not for the fact that his star power was not suppressed by any power, it would have been very difficult for him to break out of the blood demon realm. In the blood demon realm, the two gray-robed martial artists were terrified. Their old faces turned as white as paper. They felt that in the blood demon realm, their Yuan Meridian was greatly suppressed. It seemed that their strength was only at the 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor. This is impossible. Godslayer young master was even more panicked. He roared angrily, his eyes filled with great disbelief. Previously, his attention had been on Zhu Tianhua and Zhu Lian. He did not even look at Lin Yi. Who would have thought that the latter was actually an existence far more terrifying than Zhu Tianhua? This is your grave. At this time, Lin Yi's voice sounded. It was cold and gloomy, like the death knell of hell, knocking on the hearts of Godslayer young master and the others. Arrogant. The two gray-robed old men calmed down slightly. They roared angrily and attacked at the same time. Even if their strength was suppressed, they were still 3rd-level Heavenly Emperors. Lin Yi also had 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor strength. 2 against 1, they still had a chance of winning. Chapter 1137. Inside the blood demon profound world, 2 gray-clothed old men attacked at the same time, wanting to end Lin Yi's life. However, their figures had just moved when 2 blood-colored sharp blades suddenly flashed past before their eyes. Virtually without any time to react, it was like a flash of light. The next moment, the 2 gray-clothed old men screamed at the same time. They felt a chill on their necks, and suddenly, a warm liquid gushed out of their necks. Their heads flew up in the air, and their faces were full of shock. Their eyes were full of despair, and their bodies stiffened in an instant. 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists were actually instantly killed by Lin Yi, dying with their heads chopped off. What terrifying ocular power! Seeing this scene, Nye Tian's gaze trembled violently, his shock considerable. Lin Yi's strength exceeded his expectations. After entering the Heaven Realm, not only did Lin Yi's strength reach 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor, what was even more terrifying was that his eye of blood demon seemed to have become even more terrifying. Not only could he unleash the blood demon profound world, but he could also directly condense a blood light, killing people imperceptibly. The Eye of Blood Demon attacked very quickly, without any reaction time at all, killing in an instant. Such a fast killing technique, can I dodge it? Nye Tian asked himself in his heart. As long as Nye Tian used the holographic divine mark, the holographic projection could predict Lin Yi's attack timing. Coupled with the speed of the meteor wings, he had a very high assurance of directly avoiding Lin Yi's demonic eye attack. But the demonic eye attack just now, Lin Yi clearly did not use his full strength. Who knew what other shocking means his Eye of Blood Demon still had? The reincarnation of an ancient blood demon king is indeed formidable. Thinking of Lin Yi's true identity, Nye Tian could not help sighing. According to Elder Sword, the Blood Demon King was a peak powerhouse of the 12 ancient demon clans, even almost becoming the leader of the 12 demon kings. Indeed very terrifying. Lin Yi clearly had not fully awakened the blood demon power in his body yet. If it was fully awakened, then it would really be unimaginably horrifying. I must kill him before he fully awakens the blood demon memories. Thinking up to this point, Nye Tian firmed the idea of killing Lin Yi in his heart. Lin Yi, this person's methods were cruel, unscrupulous in order to obtain power. He absolutely could not be left alive. When the surrounding people saw the scene in the blood demon profound world, their gazes all became sluggish as they said in a daze. 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists died just like that. It was seriously too strange. Seeing this, Zhu Tianhua's face turned as pale as a sheet, and beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. Lin Yi killed the heaven-killing sex people. Furthermore, it was 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. His status in the heaven-killing sect was likely not low. How could the heaven-killing sect take it lying down? Thinking of this, Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but tremble. However, in the next moment, he calmed down and thought to himself, if the heaven murder sect really wants to destroy my Zhu family, I can only ask the old ancestor to come forward. When Zhu Tianhua thought of the Zhu family's patriarch, his expression became much calmer. An intense killing intent even appeared in his eyes. No one knew that the Zhu family had an old ancestor, and this old ancestor's status was incomparably high. He was someone that no power in the East River Divine Realm could afford to offend. However, the Zhu family patriarch had warned Zhu Tianhua that he wouldn't appear unless it was absolutely necessary. Therefore, Zhu Tianhua wouldn't ask for the Zhu family's patriarch's help until the very last moment. You killed them? In the blood demon world, young Master Godslayer was stunned for a long time. Finally, he reacted. His face was full of fear as he looked at Lin Yi. Not only will I kill them, but I'll also kill you. Lin Yi's lips curled into a faint smile. His cold smile sent chills down people's spines. He walked towards young Master Godslayer step by step. The killing intent on his body also became more and more intense. You can't kill me. I'm young Master Godslayer, the young sect master of the heaven-killing sect. If you kill me, the heaven-killing sect will not let you off. Young Master Godslayer's voice was hoarse and trembling. He couldn't stop retreating, almost falling down. At this time, he still wanted to use the heaven-killing sect to threaten Lin Yi. Lin Yi was someone who didn't fear heaven and earth. Why would he care about a puny heaven-killing sect? You're a madman. You're worse than dog shit. Nye Tian looked at young Master Godslayer with the corner of his mouth slightly twitching. If it was Long Outyen, no matter how strong the enemy was, he absolutely wouldn't say a single word, let alone beg for mercy. He would only curse. That was the real arrogance. As for young Master Godslayer, he was at most arrogant. At this time, Nye Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly felt a terrifying aura rushing towards him, bringing with it a violent rage. Watch out! In an instant, Nye Tian felt something was wrong. His eyes darkened and he shouted. Who dares to hurt the people of my heaven-killing sect? Just as Nye Tian's voice faded, a tyrannical voice rang in the sky. Then, a huge silver claw appeared out of thin air and pressed down on the blood demon world. Boom! Crack! In the next moment, the silver claw descended on the blood demon world. The whole world suddenly sank and a violent tearing sound was heard. A crack was directly torn in the blood demon world. Break for me! Bang! Then, an even more violent sound rang out. The silver claw suddenly exerted force, and the entire blood demon world collapsed. The blood-red runes dissipated in the void. Ah! A miserable scream rang out. Lin Yi's figure was directly sent flying, leaving a bloody trail in the air. The sudden scene made the crowd's eyes tremble again. Their expressions stiffened, not knowing what had happened. What was that silver claw that suddenly appeared? How could it be so terrifying that it could tear the blood demon world to pieces? At this time, Nye Tian's face also stiffened. 4 words appeared in his mind: Silver Wolf's Hand. He was very sure that the silver claw that broke the blood demon world was the Silver Wolf's Hand. The Silver Wolf's Hand, like the Blade Dragon Arm and the 8 Desolate Ghost Bone, was one of the 4 great mysterious arms. Nye Tian did not expect that the Silver Wolf's Hand would appear here. Godslayer, are you all right? At this time, a figure in black appeared in the sky and directly descended next to young Master Godslayer. Father! Young Master Godslayer turned to look at the person next to him and actually burst into tears. If this person had come half a step later, he would already be a corpse by now. Sect leader of the heaven-killing sect. Someone in the crowd calmed down. When he saw the face of the figure in black, he could not help but cry out in a sharp voice. Shi Wushang. When Zhu Tianhua saw that person, his face instantly stiffened. His whole body was petrified and he subconsciously shouted a name. The person who came was none other than the sect leader of the heaven-killing sect, Shi Wushang. Nye Tian looked at Shi Wushang. The latter was a middle-aged man with a tall and sturdy figure, but his face was extremely thin. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, flickering with a sharp light. His aura was always concealed, but he still gave off a strong oppressive feeling. Chapter 1138. Nye Tian looked at Shi Wushang. One of the latter's arms was suffused with a silvery white luster. There was actually a layer of faint light circulating on it. An extremely mysterious power surged, growing and multiplying endlessly. Silver Wolf Hand is indeed impressive. Nye Tian's eyes flickered with a blazing light, and he cried out in surprise in his heart. Lin Yi's blood demon profound world was very strong. Its defensive degree was not inferior to a rank 8 spirit array. Breaking it from the inside was already very difficult. Breaking it from the outside was even harder, requiring at least 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength. Although Shi Wushang had 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength, he did not use much essence energy to break open the blood demon profound world. He practically purely used the power of the Silver Wolf Hand. But more importantly, Nye Tian detected that Shi Wushang attacked from several tens of thousands of meters away. The Silver Wolf Hand released from the void directly shattered the blood demon profound world. This kind of means was truly shocking. Nye Tian did not expect that a powerhouse like Shi Wushang would actually appear in the Xianhuang mountain range. Shi Wushang was the Heaven Murder Sect's sect master. The Heaven Murder Sect was a first-rate faction of the East River Divine Realm. Hence, he was considered a pinnacle powerhouse of the East River Divine Realm. Could it be that he also believed that a heaven-earth spiritual pool really appeared in the Xianhuang mountain range? With such a powerhouse appearing, things are a little troublesome. Nye Tian's brows furrowed. If Shi Wushang really wanted to kill Lin Yi, then it would be terrible. Shi Wushang had 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength. If he attacked with full strength, no one present could stop him. At this time, young Master Godslayer suddenly pointed at Lin Yi and roared with a savage look, "Father, kill him for me!" Lin Yi nearly killed him. How could he let him off easily? The current Lin Yi was in a somewhat sorry state, his complexion pale, blood flowing from his eyes, his entire face appearing cold and demonic. The blood demon profound world being directly torn apart by the silver wolf hand dealt a huge blow to him, making his eye of blood demon suffer heavy injuries. His strength also fell greatly. "Boy, who are you?" Shi Wushang looked at Lin Yi cold but was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he spoke in a deep voice. At the same time, his divine sense swept over the latter, and his eyes could not help revealing a look of surprise. He suddenly realized that there was a huge hidden power in Lin Yi's body. This power actually made him feel threatened. Although Lin Yi only had third-level Heavenly Emperor strength, his actual combat strength was very strange. He could actually easily kill 2 fifth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Furthermore, that blood-colored barrier was even more terrifying. Withstanding the silver wolf's hand strike head-on, it withstood the majority of the impact. That was how Lin Yi survived. If it weren't for the blood demon world, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to withstand the silver wolf's attack. This kid can't be allowed to live. In an instant, icy cold killing intent arose in Shi Wushang's heart, and his eyes flashed with piercingly cold killing intent. Lin Yi looked at Shi Wushang cold and didn't say anything. Then, he turned to look at Nie Tian. His eyes were clearly asking for help. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Lin Yi to ask for help at this time. Could it be that he already knows my identity? Nie Tian frowned and his face sank. It seemed that Lin Yi had understood something. He knew that Nie Tian wouldn't let him die, so he asked Nie Tian for help. Save? Or not? Nie Tian was faced with a choice. If he didn't save Lin Yi, it was very likely that Lin Yi would die at Shi Wushang's hands. Once the blood demon force was released, it would be difficult for everyone present to escape. Nie Tian had the meteor wings, so he was naturally confident that he could escape even if the blood demon force in Lin Yi's body was released. Save. However, the next moment Nie Tian made a decision. He had to save Lin Yi. Not for anything else, but for the hidden dragon royal bloodline in Lin Yi's body. Nie Tian was still thinking about merging the spirit dragon royal bloodline and the hidden dragon royal bloodline to form a supreme dragon bloodline. Therefore, Lin Yi couldn't die yet. As soon as he thought of this, Nie Tian's figure moved and directly appeared next to Lin Yi. Who is this person? The crowd couldn't help but be stunned when they saw a figure suddenly appear next to Lin Yi. Everyone knew that Shi Wushang wanted to kill Lin Yi at this time, and even Zhu Tianhua stayed far away. Wasn't Nie Tian courting death by standing there at this time? Sir! Shui Yong was suddenly stunned, but then he immediately reacted and shouted. His voice was hoarse. Go back. I know what I'm doing. Nie Tian directly transmitted his voice to Shui Yong, not letting him come over. Facing an opponent like Shi Wushang, even if Shui Yong appeared, it would be useless. On the other side, in the spirit boat hidden in the void. Big brother, is this silver-haired kid crazy? Bai Xiaoya was stunned, and her beautiful eyes flashed violently. She looked at Nie Tian with a look of disbelief. Bai Yunfei didn't know why Nie Tian did this, so he just shook his head slightly. Then he noticed that Bai Xiaofei, who was next to him, was frowning, as if he had discovered something. He couldn't help but ask, Xiao Fei, did you discover something? Bai Yunfei knew that his second brother's origin spirit was different from ordinary people. It was a variant spirit with strong perception and could sense all kinds of hidden powers. Bai Xiaofei's expression was strange. He must have discovered something shocking. Big brother. Bai Xiaofei's sharp eyes moved back and forth between Nie Tian and Lin Yi. His face became more and more gloomy. He said, Nie Tian and Lin Yi seem to have 2 powers of the same attribute in their bodies. If I'm not wrong, it should be the legendary dragon's vein, a very terrifying dragon's vein. If their dragon's veins fuse together, they will definitely be able to explode with shocking power. Dragon's vein. Bai Yunfei and Bai Xiaoye were stunned. Dragon's veins were something that only existed in legends. Could there really be people in this world with dragon's veins? But Bai Yunfei was very sure that Bai Xiaofei's perception would not be wrong. Bai Xiaofei could sense dragon's veins in both Nie Tian and Lin Yi. If Nie Tian heard Bai Xiaofei's words, he would definitely be dumbfounded. It wasn't strange that Bai Xiaofei could sense Nie Tian's dragon qi. Anyone with a strong perception could do it. But the dragon's vein in Lin Yi's body was the royal vein of Hidden Dragon, which was hidden very well. So many people in the Dragon Rebel clan, including the chief elder, the Dragon Rebel clan leader, and even Nie Tian, who had the holographic divine glyphs, couldn't sense Lin Yi's dragon's vein. What kind of original spirit was Bai Xiaofei? How could he sense the royal vein of Hidden Dragon? An original spirit that was more perceptive than the holographic divine glyphs was really weird. Nie Tian. At this moment, Zhu Lian saw a figure suddenly appear next to Lin Yi. She was surprised. When she saw it was Nie Tian, she screamed in surprise. "Bastard, it's you!" Almost at the same time, young Master Godslayer's voice came. He looked at Nie Tian viciously, spitting fire of anger. He wanted to burn Nie Tian into ashes, grind his bones and scatter his ashes. He hated Zhu Lian, but he hated Nie Tian even more. Originally, he was thinking of finding Nie Tian and then taking revenge. He didn't expect Nie Tian to show up on his own. This was really an unexpected surprise. "Godslayer, you know this guy?" Shi Wushang was also stunned when he saw someone suddenly appear in front of him. Disdain flashed in his eyes. He also sensed a strange power in Nie Tian, but at the same time, he sensed that Nie Tian's strength was in the second level of Heavenly Emperor. Chapter 1139. "Father, this guy injured me before. Kill him for me." When God Slayer young master saw Nie Tian appear, a malicious light flickered in his eyes. But he suddenly felt that letting Nie Tian die directly was too easy on him. He actually said, "Father, cripple him for me. This child wants to kill him personally. Use the cruelest means to kill him." Shi Wushang's gaze turned slightly dark, seemingly like even he could not put up with it anymore. But Shi Wushang immediately shook his head, looking at Nie Tian very doubtfully. Lin Yi had third-level Heavenly Emperor strength. Being able to defeat God Slayer young master was already monstrous talent. While Nie Tian only had second-level Heavenly Emperor strength, he could actually defeat God Slayer young master too. Wasn't he even more monstrous? Shi Wushang could not help giving God Slayer young master a glance, seemingly doubting whether the latter was still that son that made him proud. "Forget it, kill these two stinking brats first before talking." Shi Wushang sighed inwardly. Lin Yi and Nie Tian were both young, but their strengths were both very formidable. These two people could not be left alive and must be eliminated. At this time, Nie Tian and Lin Yi exchanged a glance, their gazes both very strange. The two people did not expect that there would actually still be a time to join hands once more. The current Nie Tian and Lin Yi already had a very deep understanding of each other and even had a considerable tacit understanding. At the same instant, the two people's entire bodies released berserk fighting intent at the same time. The aura around them skyrocketed frenziedly. What are these two people doing? Could it be that they still want to fight with the heaven-killing sect master? When the crowd saw this scene, their gazes could not help trembling, revealing looks of disbelief one after another. Looking at Nie Tian and Lin Yi's actions, it seemed like they wanted to fight with Shi Wushang. A second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist, and a third-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist joining hands and wanting to contend with an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. These two people were either lunatics or idiots. Humph! Shi Wushang sensed the two people's wild fighting intent and was first taken aback, then immediately smiled coldly and said indifferently, "Just two ants. Even if tied together, they're still ants." Shi Wushang was an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist, and also had the Silver Wolf's hand. How could he place Nye Tian and Lin Yi in his sights? In his opinion, Nye Tian and Lin Yi were two little ants that could be crushed and annihilated with a casual move. Nye Tian, I believe you also want to know the power of the 5-yang dragon vein and the 9-star dragon vein, right? At this time, Lin Yi said faintly. He looked at Nye Tian with a strange look and said with a playful expression. He wanted to obtain Nye Tian's 9-star dragon vein, so he wanted to see the power of dual veins. Furthermore, Nye Tian is also interested in the 5-yang dragon vein. He would definitely want to see the power of the fusion of the two veins. Both of them had ulterior motives and were scheming against each other. Their temporary alliance was only forced by the circumstances. Of course. Nye Tian smiled faintly. Without hesitation, his body trembled as a sea of lightning appeared behind him. The purplish-golden lightning enveloped the space within a radius of 10,000 meters. Huge bolts of lightning danced in the air, like thunder from the 9 heavens. What a terrifying power! The crowd's gaze trembled violently. They did not expect that a second-level heavenly emperor martial artist could release such horrifying power. Everyone retreated in unison, leaving the center of the battle. Very good. Lin Yi smiled faintly, a hint of a strange smile emerging on his face. Immediately, his entire body released terrifying crimson dragon chi. It was precisely the 5-yang dragon chi. Roar! Immediately, a dragon roar sounded out. The surrounding space shook with a loud bang. It was as if there were countless enormous dragons wreaking havoc in the space. That kind of boundlessly majestic aura made people tremble in fear. When everyone saw this scene, they sucked in a cold breath in unison, their gazes all turning sluggish. Amen? Shi Wushang felt 2 massive dragon might pouncing on him. His brows involuntarily tightened, unable to conceal the surprise in his eyes. Dragon vein. In the next instant, Shi Wushang reacted and cried out in surprise. His face revealed an insolent look, his eyes surging with scorching heat as he laughed loudly and said, I didn't expect that the two of you are actually people who are born with dragon veins. No wonder your strength is so strange. Dragon vein. The crowd was stunned again. Then, they all understood that the vast aura in the space was dragon chi. 2 stinking brats, I really didn't expect that the 2 of you actually have dragon veins in your bodies, and that they are so strong. But unfortunately, your strength is too weak, so leave the dragon vein to me. Shi Wushang's eyes surged with fanaticism as he roared insolently. What he was thinking was that as long as he obtained Nye Tian and Lin Yi's dragon veins, he would become a peak heavenly emperor, and even be comparable to the 9 emperors. How could he not be excited? The heavens are kind to me, Shi Wushang, to actually give me 2 dragon veins. Ah! Shi Wushang was almost crazy with excitement at this time. He was in great joy. Nye Tian and Lin Yi looked at Shi Wushang and sneered at the same time. This guy is quite ambitious. He actually wants to possess the supreme dual veins. But the problem is, does he have this strength? Nye Tian and Lin Yi's eyes darkened at the same time. Then, the dragon chi behind them instantly became violent. Behind them, the scarlet 5-sun dragon chi and the purple-gold 9-star dragon chi actually slowly fused, gradually turning into a scarlet-gold color. As the 5-sun dragon chi and the 9-star dragon chi fused, a vast and mighty power started surging and spreading. Terrifying dragon chi filled the surrounding space. The surrounding people seemed to feel the real aura of a divine dragon. Nye Tian felt the dragon vein in his body revolve crazily, almost becoming violent, causing his body to tremble unceasingly. Beside him, Lin Yi was the same. His expression was filled with great excitement, almost going crazy. The 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein were known as the supreme dual veins. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying power would erupt after fusing. Huh! At this time, Shi Wushang finally sensed that something was wrong. His gaze involuntarily trembled, and a hint of unconcealable fear flashed in his eyes. The crowd's gazes also became sluggish. They looked at Nye Tian and Lin Yi in astonishment. At this time, most people started to believe that the two of them could really fight Shi Wushang if they joined forces. Shi Wushang didn't dare to delay any longer. He raised his silver wolf's hand, and a strange silver power appeared, surging in his palm. Brat, die! A cold light flashed in Shi Wushang's eyes. He slapped out with his palm, and the silver power directly exploded in the air, condensing into a sharp silver claw. It was so sharp that it seemed to be able to tear the void apart. It whistled out and fiercely pounced towards Nye Tian and Lin Yi. At this time, the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein had completely fused together. The reddish-gold dragon chi surging in the space instantly condensed, and a giant reddish-gold dragon appeared. It was actually a super dragon that was more than 2,000 meters long. The moment the giant reddish-gold dragon appeared, it roared angrily at the sky. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth, and the weather changed color. At this moment, everyone felt a surge of mighty power rush over. Their expressions immediately became dull and stiff, and even their breathing seemed to stop. The giant reddish-gold dragon's body was flowing with reddish-gold light. Although its body wasn't a physical body, it was even more shocking than a physical body. This. Shi Wushang looked at the giant reddish-gold dragon and felt the vast pressure. His eyes couldn't help but tremble violently. Chapter 1140. What a terrifying power! Nye Tian couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the giant dragon shatter the silver wolf's attack with a single claw strike. The power of the giant dragon formed after the fusion of the dual meridians had exceeded Nye Tian's expectations. Lin Yi's eyes also darkened. He was equally surprised. At this moment, both of them were determined to fuse the dual meridians. How is this possible? Someone in the crowd exclaimed. The giant dragon could actually break Shi Wushang's attack so easily. It was truly terrifying. The 3 siblings of the Bai family were all stunned in the spirit boat. Bai Xiaofei was right. The power of the fusion of the dual meridians was indeed shocking. It was unimaginably powerful. Kill him for me. At this moment, a cold light flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. He wanted to control the giant dragon, but he discovered the existence of another force controlling it. He couldn't help but look at Nye Tian with a cold expression. The giant dragon was formed from the fusion of the dual meridians. Nye Tian and Lin Yi both had the ability to control it, so they had to work together if they wanted the giant dragon to move freely. When Shi Wushang saw the golden dragon stiffening in midair, and the strange expressions on Nye Tian and Lin Yi's faces, he immediately understood what was going on. His lips curled into a cold smile and his aura soared. A giant silver wolf appeared behind him. It was 1,000 meters long, and its silver fur released a white light. Its entire body was covered in a layer of silver energy. Giant spirit true body. When the crowd saw the giant silver wolf behind Shi Wushang, their eyes trembled, and they revealed great fear. Shi Wushang was going all out. He had actually released the giant spirit true body. The crowd's eyes trembled violently. They were all wondering if Shi Wushang's giant spirit true body could fight against the giant dragon. Brat, I'll tear you apart. Shi Wushang's face was as gloomy as water, and his lips curled into a cold, murderous smile. The giant silver wolf howled and turned into a silver bolt of lightning, directly pouncing toward the giant dragon. Swish! The silver dragon was extremely fast. Like a ball of silver flames, its sharp silver claws aimed at the head of the crimson gold dragon and slashed down. Nye Tian and Lin Yi were stunned at the same time. Immediately after, the crimson gold dragon's body rolled, its huge dragon claws raised, and waves of dragon might were released. The surrounding space directly turned into a sea of crimson gold flames. Boom! In the next moment, the giant silver wolf and the crimson golden dragon collided head-on. A deafening sound erupted in the void, and the space seemed to be torn apart. In the void, two huge beasts, one gold and one silver, actually began a terrifying melee. One was formed from dragon chi, while the other was formed from flesh and blood. The crowd stared at the two gigantic beasts in the sky. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. A battle of this level was too terrifying. It shook the heavens and the earth, causing fear to well up in the hearts of the spectators. At the same time, they could feel their blood boiling. Bang! 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 The crimson gold dragon and the silver wolf fought fiercely in the void. Terrifying power wreaked havoc in the space, causing muffled sounds to erupt. Swoosh! The sharp claws of the silver wolf were like swords. With a loud crash, it actually left a terrifying 100-meter-long gash on the body of the crimson gold dragon. The crimson gold dragon chi escaped and surged in the space. Bang! At the same time, the crimson gold dragon's claws also slammed down, directly bombarding the belly of the silver wolf. A shrill wolf howl resounded. Shi Wuxiang felt a sharp pain that struck his whole body. His body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this scene, Nie Tian and Lin Yi roared at the same time, their eyes flashing with cold killing intent. Kill! The crimson dragon let out a deafening roar. Its huge dragon head suddenly stretched out, and its body rolled out. A huge pressure was released like a landslide and a tsunami. Its two dragon horns were like sharp blades as they blasted towards the silver wolf. Puff! The dragon horns were like swords. With the sound of flesh being torn, they deeply pierced into the back of the silver wolf. Awoof! Immediately, a shrill and miserable howl sounded. The silver wolf gave off a heart-wrenching scream. Immediately, blood rained down, dyeing a stretch of the sky red. The space was filled with the smell of blood. The most fatal blow directly made the silver wolf fall into a state of near death. Sect Master Shi is going to lose. The extremely tragic scene made everyone's gazes tremble one after another, their eyes horrified to the extreme. Unable to imagine that a second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist and a third-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist joining hands could actually kill an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. This scene was too shocking. Arg! At virtually the same time, Shi Wuxiang gave off an ear-piercing wail, his entire body dripping with blood, his entire face becoming hideous. He never dreamed that he would actually die at the hands of Nie Tian and Lin Yi. Two ants that he normally could not even be bothered to take a look at could actually threaten his life. This made him unable to believe it. At this time, as long as the crimson gold dragon exerted a little force, the dragon horn would directly pierce through the silver wolf's body, and Shi Wuxiang would die without a doubt. But right at this instant, that crack on the crimson gold dragon's body suddenly expanded. Dragon chi escaped frenziedly. The silver wolf's body immediately became dim, and it was actually on the verge of shattering. Amen? Nie Tian and Lin Yi were stunned at the same time. Although they wanted to maintain the silver wolf's body, they were already unable to do so. The crimson gold dragon directly turned into dragon chi and dissipated under the watch of countless gazes. The silver wolf broke free of control and directly disappeared, being recalled back by Shi Wuxiang. What's going on? The crowd's gazes were dull, completely not knowing what happened. The crimson gold dragon only suffered a very minor injury. How did it expand infinitely and directly dissipate? Nie Tian and Lin Yi exchanged a glance, and both of them seemed to realize something. The fusion of their two meridians was unstable to begin with. After all, it belonged to the power of two martial bodies. Although the 9-star dragon chi and the 5-yang dragon chi seemed to have completely fused together, to the point of becoming one, they were repelling each other internally. After the crimson gold dragon was injured, the repelling between the two dragon chi expanded. In the end, it could not maintain the dragon's body and completely collapsed. It seems that only by allowing the two great dragon veins to exist in the same martial body can they be completely fused and unleash the true power of the sovereign dual meridians. Nie Tion's gaze sank slightly as he thought to himself. He glanced at Lin Yi. The latter's eyes were blazing. They should have the same thoughts. Although the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-yang dragon vein had only fused for a short period of time, Nie Tion and Lin Yi both felt the terror of the fusion. There was a great disparity in strength between the two of them and Shi Wushang, yet they could use the fusion of dual meridians to heavily injure him and even almost kill him. The power of the fusion of dual meridians could be imagined. At this moment, the two of them were determined to snatch the other's dragon vein. However, they were now facing a very serious situation. The fusion of the dual meridians had been broken, and Shi Wushang was not dead. How were they going to deal with it? The fusion of the dual meridians had almost killed Shi Wushang, but at the last moment it had failed. At this moment, Shi Wushang stood in the void. The blood on his body had already disappeared, and the wound on his back had instantly healed. Although his aura was a little weaker, it was still very powerful.